to the Monday, November 18th, 2024, Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. I just got a text from Craig that he's running a little late, but he is expected this evening, and we therefore are still okay because we have a quorum. I believe there are no changes to the agenda.
Just desire referral discussion.
Pardon?
Desire referral discussion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Guyer referral discussion.
Okay.
We can do a follow-up.
Okay, so we're adding a buyer referral to the agenda for this evening. Nothing else though. All right. You received Jim's meeting notes. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to accept the meeting notes?
So moved.
Second. Tom, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. You received in draft form the November 4th minutes. Does anyone have any corrections, additions they wish to make?
I move we accept.
I have a motion. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. Correspondence and announcements. Do we want to talk about that January meeting? We have the choice open to us, as you recall. The first meeting in January would normally fall on, let's see here, would normally fall on the 6th, which is also the evening that the town board has their reorg meeting. We can either start our meeting late. They start at 6:30.
And she said 6.
6. They start at 6. They don't know how long it will take. I would imagine it would take at least an hour. We can either agree to meet later, or we can meet on Tuesday at our regular 6 o'clock time. Do people have a preference? Is Tuesday preferable? Everybody okay with Tuesday the 7th? All right, so Gretchen, I think that by consensus, we'll move that meeting to January 7th.
And you guys do have to approve the calendar.
Okay. And that was circulated last month? Okay. Has everybody had a chance to look at that? Other than that meeting, are there any changes you wish to make? No? May I have a motion to approve the calendar?
So moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor? Opposed, abstention, motion carries. The approval notwithstanding, should something come up during the year, we still have the ability to change it if there's a conflict. All right, so we'll move into the new application phase of this evening's meeting, and the first new application before us is that of Rebecca Tadaconda, 310 Enterprise Drive, site plan amendment for the addition of a roof deck and stairs. You may remember that we approved this application not too many months ago, but I guess at the completion of the project, there's a new request for modification. Would you like to present that, please?
Good evening, members of the board and community. Yes, they are, once they see the building, once they saw the building up and they realized the beautiful view, and we already had approval for the green roof, the request is to add a rooftop parapet deck up there that's under the 200 square feet. So it's not any special requirements per se. With a cable rail, guardrail system around it, a railing system. That would be a matching one to the spiral stairs, which are a full code compliant set of stairs there. That being said, it is within the building footprint. It is within the building footprint, which we advise them to do. And it does tuck in nicely near that exterior door there on that side, small concrete pathway there.
The spiral staircase is within the building, or?
Within the building footprint, well, the foundation
But it's
footprint. I should say.
exterior to
It's
the-
exterior staircase, but within the foundation footprint, yes. Other than that, it's, pretty self-explanatory on the paperwork submitted.
So when I originally reviewed it, there were plans that didn't have dimensions, things on them, those have been provided now. Really don't have any issues or concerns with this from a planning perspective. So I have provided the board with either a procedural resolution to do a public hearing next month on this, or potentially if you wanted to move in that direction, and approve a resolution tonight. If you wanted to see, it's essentially it's the equivalent of a field change, but one that was run through the planning board.
Right. We had the option of allowing it to go forward as a field change, but decided that it was substantive enough that we would bring it here, but we do have the option tonight to accept it as site plan modification and waive going ahead with the public hearing. So I'll open it up to planning board members for comments and questions.
I just want to ask a quick question. The spiral staircase, is the staircase revealed or is it surrounded by a round wall?
It is revealed, so we'll have a cable rail system like
So
that.
that's what you see.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You will still see the siding and such through.
My own view is I would be okay without a site visit, et cetera.
With the site
Without.
visit? Without. Okay,
I don't know how everyone else
do
feels.
you have an opinion?
Seems to fit, within the footprint.
No?
I wouldn't call it public challenge. It's on this application, so with that said, I agree with the board members.
There is no view from the road, neighbors, or any such like that. As I say, it's very
So
isolated
it's tucked
property.
into the facade of the building, it isn't visible from
That's correct.
anywhere else?
Occasional airplane, but other than that, no.
What about drones?
Yes, that would qualify, yes.
Anyone else? All right, then do we want to run through the modification?
So, as we were going through a draft approval resolution for tonight, so see if the board is okay with that. So this would be for Rebecca and Mount Tataconda. The board acting as follows on the application for site plan under chapter 125 for construction of a roof deck, spiral staircase, and associated improvements at 310 Enterprise Road within the RC5. Reaffirming the action is secret type 2, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. We did that in the previous review. Based upon submitted information, including the prior review of the pool house by the planning board in 2022, find the work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of chapter 125. With respect to the application for site plan approval, we'll find the proposed work and intended use is consistent with Town Code chapter 125 and approve the application inclusive of the materials shown here. I will add on here if I didn't, that we are waiving the public hearing for the zoning code. We're authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above cited site plan upon the applicant's satisfaction of the three conditions below. And state that in taking this action, the planning board authorizes the secretary to provide the approval resolution to the applicant along with next steps required to finalize the planning board process, authorize the zoning enforcement officer, zoning administrator, and building inspector to issue any required permits. It reminds the applicant that all plan sketches or other materials submitted to the town of Rhinebeck Planning Department for any required permits, including a certificate of occupancy and certificate of completion, must match the materials approved by the planning board.
Annette, motion.
So will.
Second. I'll pull the board. Linda?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Sharon? Aye. Denise? Aye. And I vote aye. Good luck.
Thanks very much.
Review.
Thank you.
The second new application under consideration this evening is a ranch, Rhinebeck, 70 to 100 Dales Lane, minor subdivision amendment to previously filed subdivision. Good evening, John.
So this is basically a lot, can you hear me? Anyway, this is basically a lot line adjustment, it got a little more complicated with that, and that with the conservation subdivision. But to try to explain what we're doing here.
There's a laser pointer there if you want to use that sign.
Yeah.
Second one.
Let me activate myself first. This here is,
Little dash there.
here we go. This right here, this is Mill Road, right here. And we actually own 4 different parcels, 70 to 100 Dodds Lane, which is Mensch Rhinebeck, are these 4 parcels right here. This is the land we killed that runs between the 2 sides of the property. Right now, this property right here has been improved. It's got a house on it, a couple outbuildings. This property here is a property that my father built a long time ago. It's got the waterfall running down the Lansman Kill. And the way it's set up right now, these two are unimproved parcels. And basically, what we want to do is just change the location of these two parcels. So Jim, if you put on the next one. The idea is, this is Dodge Lane that runs down here. These are the improvements. This is Lansman Kill and Waterfall House. And if we go to the next one, these, instead of having the two lots up here, we'd like to split the lots. This will be one lot down here, about 20 acres. There's another lot down here, which is about 10. There's also a small adjustment to the lot line between the Waterfall House and this property here, because it runs right next to the hill, but it's including some of the land that's on the side of the hill. And we went through the conservation subdivision process with the town board. We got approval for that. And now we just finalize this situation.
Jim?
So we did a number of, and I'm repeating a little bit of what Jonathan said, we went through a number of items after the pre-con, talked about wanting sign off from the fire department and fire inspector, which have been provided, talked about wanting a letter from the Winnicke Land Trust, the change is consistent with the conservation easement, we have that letter. We talked about the need for the parcel to be able to provide 75% of the minimum lot area for the lots that were there, and those calculations have been put on the plans, so I think we are in good shape there. The plans do include a health department note stating that arrangements for water supply or sewage disposal are either sought or granted by this proposal. We had asked that the septic locations be shown, or a letter be provided from an engineer stating they're confident the lots have the ability to provide the necessary water and sewer infrastructure. Because the town has a policy that such lots over 5 acres don't need to necessarily show that for a subdivision. I did not see a letter like that, so I think a letter from the engineer just stating that you can get water and sewer on each of the individual lots.
Yeah, we did the perk test.
Oh, you did the perk test.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so-
and I gave Victoria that letter. I'll follow up with her and make sure.
Yeah, so if we can just get the letter put in the file, that's fine. That's all I
Yeah.
need, is that it can be met. Copy of the shared use driveway agreement was requested for review. That was submitted, something you may or may not want to pass on to John to take a look at. Essentially, I don't see any significant issues with the lot line adjustment of building areas and the envelopes. We would encourage you, given the building envelopes here, to just, if houses are built, maybe keep them as far away from the land, the creek as possible, kind of flowing through here. Obviously, they're met by code, but they're pretty big building envelopes. So the further away from the creek and the steep slopes here, the better. But essentially, I didn't find any issues with it.
And then you received the ODA
Oh, right.
from the.
Oh, yeah.
Which was required.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Members of the planning board? Questions, comments? None? All right. Then we can move to the draft procedural resolution.
Yes, so for the board's consideration tonight, the draft procedural resolution for the application of Jonathan, by Mensch Rhinebeck for subdivision under Town Code Chapter 101, the lot line adjustments of 70 to 100 Daz Lane in RA10. Accepting the application supporting documents is adequate for further review, classifying the actions so listed, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Scheduling the public hearing for December 16th at 6:05. We'll send it to the CAB for review, the WAC. Actually, does not need to go to Dutchess County Planning, so we'll take that out. And we need 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
All done. Sharon? Chairman Tom?
They're the only day on Thanksgiving and the day after.
Can't do that. We have until the 16th of December. All right, so we have a motion, do I have a motion?
Yes.
And, yes, I have a motion, and a second. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, the motion carries. All right, we're getting into this one. The third and lastly, the application for this evening is that of Workforce Housing, Rhinecliff Road, site plan and wetlands permit for affordable housing. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairwoman Moore, members of the board. I'm Ken Carney. My son and I, Sean Carney, are the owners of Carney Realty Development Group. We've been developing mixed income housing throughout Dutchess County for over the last 30 years. This development is known as Locust Hill. It's 80 units. We are procuring water and sewer from the village. I'm here with Andy Learn from CPL, Justin Lee from our office. We have the site plan has evolved, the concept plan has evolved in the last year and a half to 2 years. And we've worked with the DOT on the conceptual approval for the entrance off of Rhinecliff, one way out over on Astor. And as I mentioned, a critical component here was reaching an agreement with the village in order to purchase the water and sewer. So I'm going to turn it over to Andy Learn, and we'll give a brief overview. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just real quick on the process for this. This is a little bit different than what you're used to seeing. We've actually started talking to the town about this project back in 2021, and we actually appeared before this board in 2022 several times, getting their feedback on the project. We've since received, and the town, because it's an overlay district, the town board actually took over the agency for seeker. They actually recently issued an deck for this, so we're pretty far along in the process. But we are, looking forward to hearing your comments on the project as a whole. Which button did the
The second one down.
So this is a 23-acre parcel located on the western boundary of the village. This is Rhinecliff Road. This is Astor Drive. The greens and the town highway department is right here. We've worked with the town over the last couple of years to through several iterations to come up with this layout where we've actually adjusted the location of the entrance on Rhinecliff Road to maximize our sight distance in both directions. We've worked with the DOT to make this a full access in and out entrance to make sure that to minimize the amount of traffic on Astor Drive. The entrance off of Astor Drive, which actually we actually connect to Wells Manor Drive before we go to Astor, will be exit only. Again, to minimize the traffic on Astor Drive. We've had comments from Dutchess County Planning, multiple different agencies, county health department, and including the Rhinecliff Fire Department. We've incorporated their comments into the design already as well. Where we've widened the road per their requirements, we've added this emergency access road in the back of these buildings to make them accessible for fighting purposes. As Ken said, there's 80 units. Originally, we only had 4 buildings. We're now showing them in 5 buildings, 6 buildings to try to give the development as much of a feel as the village as possible, village feel. And we actually worked with the village and their planner to incorporate some of the work, because the Village Green is over here. They have a master plan with potential, improvements over here, so that our project could integrate with that project in the future if it does come to fruition. We prepared a stormwater pollution prevention plan where we're showing detention pond down here near Rhinecliff Road, along with other smaller stormwater management practices. Ken mentioned that we do have an agreement with the village to provide sewer and water. The village wastewater treatment plant is right here. We're planning to connect there, and then we are working with the village engineer on the water and sewer connections and how that will be fed through the site. We submitted application materials for coastal assessment, coastal wetland permit. We have a small amount of wetland disturbance here that doesn't rise to the level Actually, it does rise to the level of an Army Corps of Engineers, a nationwide permit, which we've been in discussions. We was submitted for that, but we also need a town wetland permit for that as well. So, that pretty much covers it. Questions for us?
Do we want to see anything else at this point? Maybe just elevation or anything like that?
Yeah.
This would be just-
Don't think I included them in the end of this package, but have submitted them previously.
So one of my comments is going to be that all this material is on the website, and has been on the town website.
All right, well, why don't we put in your comments in general? Rather than having to-
Let me pull up this, so you guys start talking to me. So Andy covered the first two comments I had. One, that the town board has done secret review on that, so we will not be conducting secret review on this. And then the outside agency permits and where those stand right now. I want to let the board know that Padgy Consulting Engineering is the engineer that's been working with the town on this, as CPL, planning board engineer is conflicted out on this project. So you do have access to and should utilize as needed advice from Padgy, I think, moving forward. We may bring it maybe to the next meeting. And there is a letter from them regarding some engineering issues that they had after the last set was submitted, that I think you've already seen. That was submitted to us a while ago, back in September. So getting into the comments of the things I've found in my review, town zoning code wetland law requires delineations to be made within a year of the application submission. The wetland was done by Ecological Solutions on 4/29/2021. This concept was submitted to the town of Rhinebeck Town Board for review in 2021, with the town board meeting to discuss this project held later in 2021. It was first presented to the planning board in the middle of 2022 for informational purposes. The wetland application paperwork was just completed for submission to this board. So I'm going to defer to John, and I don't necessarily need an answer tonight on whether or not you think we need a new wetland delineation. It was done within a year of the initial application to the town board, but not within a year of the wetland application technically coming to the planning board here. I don't have an answer, so I think we should just think about that, whether or not it's
Yeah, let's
necessary.
think about it. I mean, the safer thing is to have the wetlands delineated again. I mean, most of the time, the rule of thumb is that after the passage of 5 years, you should do a new delineation anyway, and although we haven't reached that point, we're getting there.
Yeah, I guess the only other thought is that you did apply to Army Corps already. I assume that they've seen that delineation paperwork went to them, so there is a process already underway with the Army Corps utilizing what's been submitted. So I think it's just something to talk about. I just want to make sure we don't get caught up later in
But
the process.
is a wetlands permit being required from town of Rhinebeck?
Yes, as well as the Army Corps. So they're reviewing based on the materials you've already submitted. I just want to make sure, again, we don't get caught up at the end, realize that that wouldn't fly, so let's think about that. And a question had come up in just random discussions about internal circulation related to school buses and other larger vehicles that might need to turn around. And it kind of is a two-part question. You had mentioned, I think, that Astor Drive is going to be one way out. I think the note said that it was going to be emergency access only.
Yes, that's what it says.
So-
That's the same question.
Could you clarify what the proposal is here, and then how school buses can access the site, and whether kids are going to be picked up in the buildings or somewhere else, and how that would work?
Well, so the road has been designed to be dedicated, so that it could be dedicated to the town, but otherwise, it's a private road. So I don't think the school buses would come up into this site unless it's dedicated.
It's highly unlikely the town board's going to take dedication based on past discussions, so I don't see that.
Most likely, they will not come into the site.
Which, you said it's exit only, but the plan seems to indicate that it will be gated. So that is conflicting to me.
And it said emergency.
Yeah, it says emergency only, but other places I've seen it referred to as exit only, implying that people exiting here and go out on Rhinebeck Road and also to Astor Drive. So I'm not sure which is which here.
I'll have to, yeah, exit only. It's exit only, and that's a requirement from the DOT. So emergency vehicles could use it, in any manner they see fit.
But
But
it's
for regular
emergency.
traffic, it will only
So
be 50.
describing it as exit only is not correct.
Well, it's
It's
exit only
emergency.
normal use.
But my understanding was there would be no normal use.
Right.
Am I wrong? It said emergency use only.
Well, let's just say we need
Yeah,
clarification.
sure.
So then, back to Jim's question, not to interrupt with which I already have. So have you established, have you reached out to the school district, have you talked to them about where children will be picked up? How are we accommodating that?
Assume lots of kids at the same time.
Well, we have not had any conversation with the school district at this point.
If I may, two things. The intent is to have that exit only, not just an emergency access. That would
But
be-
he just said something different about DOT.
That's what
No,
you
it's like,
said.
yeah, you exit them.
That's what the DOT wants. They want exit only. They want it two-way, and we pushed back and reached a point where they accepted just exit only. In regards to the school district, great question. In my experience, and we've just completed 3 of these in the surrounding area. The school district will normally take the position that they will not come on private property. However, it's also been my experience that as people move in, I've seen that change. So we will reach out, I will reach out, and we will make allowances for a pickup. But what we found is once people move in, people ask, then
And the school district determines on their own that they will go onto a private drive with or without the town board involved?
I've had it in
I just wanted-
the last 3 municipalities I've worked, it's happened in both Carmel, Somers. But we will reach out to the school district and get clarification.
And then if the school district firmly says we will not go into the driveway, will there be some kind of place for the kids to gather? Will there be any kind of a shelter for them?
Sure, we can add a shelter, we've done that.
Well, since the way you're presenting it is in the past, when the new residents begin to pressure the school district often changes their mind, but that is in the future. So the plan that we look at should have you identify a gathering spot
Sure.
for children and take it, because I don't even know which way the school buses would go, but at one point, one would think they would have to cross the road either in the morning or in the afternoon unless the bus is going in a circular. Anyway, details we
Sure.
need to work out. Okay, I'm sorry. And the other on the Astor Drive, you'll make sure that the plan agrees with it being exit only and not emergency.
Yes. it's-
That's fine. So keeping with just the discussion up in this end of the property here, and I know Amy's aware of this, we're all looking into this. The DEC has new regulations coming in January. We just have to confirm that this project will not be subject to those. Secret already done, so I think it may be clear, but I just want to confirm that. Again, Secret's no over. Lighting plans. So lighting has been proposed on 12-foot poles. It's not a problem, it's below the requirement for the code. Here it is. Somewhere.
Keep going.
There it is. There's the lighting plan. So the circles kind of show you the intensity of the lighting, and where the lighting would be. They're on 12-foot poles, which is under the 15-foot maximum permitted by code. But I didn't see any plans for any other lighting other than street lighting. So like building lighting, usually we see lights placed on the sides of the doors, entranceway into the buildings, things like that. So I think we do need to see those, like cut essentially what the light would be, and where those would be located for each of the buildings.
Do you want the lighting plan, do you want the photometrics updated, or just what the what the
I don't
picture.
think the photometrics have to be updated. They're just showing us what we're gonna put on the side of the building. The lighting on the side of the building isn't gonna have an impact, I think, over the existing, street lighting you have there. But just see what you're gonna put on the side of each building, so you do have lighting. I think it's a code requirement to have lighting on all the doors, buildings, things like that. And the only other question I was gonna ask about, and we didn't have asked this before, is for the lighting coming up the road here, it looks like you have LEDs, and stuff you're putting in, has the ability to be dimmed. I didn't know if that was something you were proposing or not, but late at night, just to make things a little darker, sometimes we look at whether or not lights can be dimmed, in some of the areas, maybe not around the buildings, but maybe on the road lead up here, certain hours if dimming is possible. That is something that's kind of like best practice coming out with lighting, in certain instances. I mean, it might be something to look at here, just for the driveway up until you get to where the buildings are, if that's feasible. I didn't see landscaping plans in here. I do know the utility plan shows trees on it, so you can show trees, along the road. But I didn't see a specific landscaping plan per se, so, for that landscaping, we're going to do a detail sheet. And I know we've looked at stuff in the past, I think there was a plan.
Yeah, we haven't updated the landscaping plan for the current layout, we'll get that to you.
So we'll just if we can get that updated, that would be great. Now we're getting into kind of nitpicky stuff. These are the fence proposals. This is one fences, and here you're proposing a vinyl fence. Both of them are privacy fences. I didn't see on the plan exactly where those were proposed to go, but regardless of where they are, privacy fence requires a special use permit under 12568. 12538A. Depending on the fence location and the height, a variance or special use permit may be required. We also have, I think, a retaining wall on the site, and possibly berms for stormwater management. And retaining walls and berms are all considered to be fences. So they would all fall under that same criteria, and they require a special use permit to be submitted, which can be reviewed in concert with this plan. But you may need a special use permit for those, and the board will take a look at those specifically as it relates to that plan. And the retaining wall notes that they're not going to be more than 4 feet in height, which is good. The berm for the retention pond, I couldn't tell, I think it might be 2 feet in height, and double with the upgraded slope, I'm not really sure. But all of that stuff would fall under the equivalent of a fence permit, so maybe a special use permit. And then descriptions of where these fences are proposed to go, particularly the vinyl fences, I think that was noted in the original discussion we had in the memo that went back to you guys 2 years ago. Concerned about these fence. Other details, we saw there was a sign proposed at the entrance to Rhinecliff Road, details on directional signage. The actual sign design and lettering and size of the sign all need to be submitted for review. They don't necessarily have to be submitted for review now, but if they're not, you'll have to come back through the zoning administrator, who would then submit it to the planning board, who would then review it. So you can either do this with the planning board review, or you can do it separately at a later date. If you're going to do it at a later date, since there is a note on the plans, I think we just need the note to change to say to be approved under separate permit review at a later date, something like that. Let's see, you did provide a blasting plan, and there's a public warning element that's been drafted, talking about putting up some flags along the roads and what other means to include highly visible signage. I did go online, there are these orange aluminum blasting zone head signs, they're like $80 a piece, they're typical road signs, your typical diamonds. I think if you were to put one at each end of that area that you had intended for the flagging and whatever notification might be out there, would just good to let people know when the blasting is going to occur. Obviously, you're going to have to declare that to DOT, but if that's feasible, I think it's important the signs be out there, so people are aware of that. And then my last question just kind of relates to the adjacent property, which I know you have no control over, but has there been any discussion with Winnicke about any connectivity, potential for people getting up here? I know you are proposing a path, come up to the road and into the development. Development. And then there have been discussions kind of floating around about, what's going on with the regard.
Yes, somebody from the Dutchess County Department of Planning, I think they just retired, set up a meeting a couple of years ago. Andy and I met them with another representative from Winnicke to see how they asked if we could work with them to connect the sidewalk, the bluestone sidewalk, to the easement they have over there. We said we were willing to do so. We talked like this at a meeting, and we received a letter from Winnicke Land Trust say, please don't mention us again as any part of your plans. So that's where we are right now.
Was the homeowners association, the gardens involved in that conversation?
They had a representative at that meeting, and they were there when we walked, it was 2 people from Winnicke. It was actually, I think, 2 people from the HOA gardens. But we've had no correspondence from the gardens. We got this very direct letter from chairperson of the Winnicke Land Trust. So
You at the time were willing to engage in a conversation with them if they had chosen to?
we did.
Well, I mean,
Madam Chair,
were you willing to take
Yeah,
it
well, we
further?
met, we said, sure, it made sense.
Yeah.
They have an easement over here. They're trying to build a trail, a walking trail, and connect over here, and it just, so it's,
Okay. We just wanted, I mean, because
Sure.
it has been brought to our attention that this easement that was granted to the gardens when it was completed
but it is not,
has not been acted on by Winnicke at all.
and it's not part of our plan.
But we just wanted to
Sure.
make people aware of, on paper, the potential for improved recreational paths in this general area.
Sure.
But thank you for the effort.
It was that connectivity, obviously, a lot of the discussion we had was this is kind of walking connectivity to the village. So it's, appreciate the clarification. Yes, the only other comment I had is, all these materials are available on the town's website, we have them for quite a while, so if you want to download them, take a look at it.
Has the water agreement been signed with the village? Because they have not,
Yes,
they have.
water
they
and
have-
sewer agreement.
Okay. So that they're still getting the district, aren't they still?
The formation of the district.
That's something that we talk about in the future, right? Having an interim agreement for 2 years.
Yeah, we have an interim agreement for 2 years, and then we're working with the village on expanding the district.
Right, but they haven't completed the expansion of the district, they have to go back before DEC, correct?
We haven't even commenced that process yet. Give me food.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Charles
Just
Montebato.
an interesting perspective.
Well, then.
I'm Charles Portavano, I'm conservative for the project. We've been dealing with the village, and we have signed an agreement with respect to both water and sewer. It's an interim agreement for 2 years, during which we're supposed to form a district for the town.
Right, well, the reason I'm asking is because we're engaging in the same conversation with the village about the water district with Grassmere and the Soho. My understanding is that the town's, or the village still needs to take action, and DEC still needs to review this, so
This or a separate agreement you're referring to?
it's obviously it's a separate agreement between the village and Grassmere, and a separate agreement with you, but I thought it was tied into,
No, it's not with us.
I think these are 2 separate things.
okay,
I think you're correct.
okay. All right, I'll offer a comment or two and then I'll open it up. Have you considered, so one of the things that's been brought up in the past certainly is the impact on the gateway coming to Rhinebeck into the village and the loss of some vegetation and trees in that area. I've been driving that road quite a bit lately and looking at it and thinking that the whole area would be vastly improved if the area in front of the highway garage had some tree plantings and shrubs in there. It would soften the entrance into the village. I commend the town highway department for keeping it looking swell, but it is a highway garage. And have you considered adding anything to your plan that would, by the goodness of your heart, improve that area for us?
I've been told my heart always gets me in trouble, but we've been talking about it on our property or on the town?
On the town. I understand that, you have graciously offered additional trees in the park. But trees in the park is lovely, but trees that would soften the highway garage area would be something that I think would enhance the whole roadway. That's my own personal observation, but just I put it out there for you to think about it.
I haven't gone there and looked at it, and so have to identify an area with the biggest
you sit back and...
Yeah, I would just, you know, we're gonna be back here next month,
Yeah.
so it's something we might want to take a look at over the next month and come back with your thoughts on that. So I open it up for other planning board members, questions, comments, observations. Sure.
Can we go back to the site plan? I couldn't find anything on the site plan that looked like community meeting outdoor places, although they were there.
I'm not sure we can hear you, and
I don't have a mic.
oh, well, try to share.
What about outdoor community gathering places, which I think were on some original site plans?
Right, so the site plan has been revised, as I mentioned, in conjunction with the master plans developed by Mr. Clark for the village. And the site has been designed around this green space here, which is intended to be a gathering area with a playground, walkway. There's going to be there's benches, picnic tables, barbecue pit. This is intended to be the public gathering space. It was originally shown as patio spaces between the buildings.
And if there is going to be a shelter for school children, then that is something that I guess would have to be designed and, you know, be included in the application. The driveway, as I remember, is quite wide. Some residents may want to walk down it. Is that going to be possible? Is there a shoulder?
We are not currently proposing this is intended to be a curved driveway, because the intent is for the access to the village would be through this stone dust path through the woods that would connect to the existing stone sidewalk, bluestone sidewalk that ends in front of the Baker House.
Mhm.
So,
And that's going to be plowed in the winter time? Mhm. There was a comment on blasting and what would happen to rock and so forth, and it would be crushed on site. How is that done?
there's a machine that put larger pieces of rock in and has,
Even large boulders?
well, the larger boulders are broken up with heavier equipment, and it's broken up into small enough pieces that can go in this piece of equipment that
Mhm.
breaks it down into smaller pieces that can be used on site.
Where will the plowed snow go?
There's room along the side of the roads for snow storage, and then we can add some locations where we can show that snow can be stored.
If it reaches a point, we get hit 2 or 3 major storms. You haven't had to do in the last few years, but sometimes you have to take it out, put it in the machine and truck it out.
There's a pond near the entry, right? Is it very deep?
It's 4 to 6 feet deep, but it's intended to be dry between storm events, so it's rain between storms.
When it's full, is it at all in danger of small children?
I mean, there's always that potential. We'll design it, with side slopes that are as safe as possible. We can also put a fence around it, or post a fence or something like that, if that's a concern.
I think that's all I have right now.
Other planning board members?
I have to apologize for walking in late and asking what might have been an obvious question. where does the school bus go? And where do kids get picked up for the school bus?
We're working on it.
Okay. Also, I have been to the site, it was a couple of years ago. My memory of it is that it's a very steeply sloped, uneven site. So this is going to require a lot of terraforming and retaining walls that have deep footings. And what's the level of impact as far as the existing forested character of the site?
So as part of the secret review that we did for the town board, we surveyed every tree on the property, over 1,000 trees. The plan is to remove roughly 400, a little more than 400 of them. And we're working as best we can with the topography. And we have the cuts and fills are, the amount we take out versus the amount we need to build the site is almost balanced. It's close within a couple thousand yards. But, for the most part, we're working with the site. Does that answer your question?
I want to know what the expectation is as far as once the project is under construction, is there the possibility that even more trees will be removed as a consequence of having to put in some very large retaining walls?
We fully expect that if we can build it the way that, if we are able to build the layout as it's shown, we won't need to remove any more trees than there are.
You've had experience with similar developments. 80 units with one primary exit. Are there going to be traffic jams in the morning? These people, this is workforce housing, so presumably most of the people are going to be working. That's a lot of cars to get going in such a small space.
Our recent projects do not have the benefit of what we have here, of one way out. We don't. Most of our developments will be a cul-de-sac at the end. They go there and turn around, so it's one way in and one way out. We haven't had that problem. Matter of fact, we just opened up 75 units next to Putnam Hospital Center. Encourage anybody to go down and take a look at it. You go past the main entrance to the hospital, it's emergency access, emergency entrance, emergency room entrance, and you go all the way up to follow. It's designed for 150 units, 75 are built and occupied, the other 75 are under construction right now. And one way in, one way out. There's been no issue. I would hear about it, I live in town. That's
We
been my experience.
we have done a full traffic study, and reviewed and approved. So we believe that it will work the way it's shown.
And again, I'm sorry, apologies for the redundant question. Wasn't there a proposed plan for seeking some sort of an easement through adjacent properties to provide foot access, footpath through Village Green or?
We don't need any easements for that. We're showing the stone dust path is going through property owned by the applicant. And it will enter, connect to that existing bluestone sidewalk within the town.
I was thinking more along the lines of Wells Manor
Wells
and
Manor.
Village Green.
We are showing connections to Wells Manor, that right up to the property line. If they choose to connect at some point in the future, they will.
And are you showing the same connecting point to back of Village Green? Is that detailed
Well,
here as well?
we can't get all the way to Village Green, but we're showing, we designed the access roads in a manner that we could connect in the future. We would.
That's been discussed in the Village Comprehensive Plan.
It's shown in the Village Comprehensive Plan where, these roads would extend down to our property, so we could be done in the future.
Even if it wasn't a driving road, it could be a walk path, right?
What I envision, when we get down to the final draft, is an easement will be drafted from the end of this here to here. So even though it's not in, the legal entity that owns this, because it's a complicated legal entity, will give, that easement will bring it right to the property line connection for the other side.
And this just occurred to me, this discussion of school children and how they will get on a bus. Assuming that the bus will not go into the property, then the question becomes, where will the bus stop? If the bus stops at the entrance, then, and there's a shelter there, then the children will be walking down that driveway with cars on it. So I think the whole issue of how kids get picked up just needs to be sorted out.
Yeah, and what we see in a situation like this is some type of shelter or area where they get picked up. And a lot of times, even though this is two-way, you will have cars that will be parked there. And the mothers and the fathers will wait for the bus to come.
50 cars?
No, not 50, not 50 cars. But some people decide to wait to see the children get on the bus.
I'm just guessing, you know, how
You're not
many kids
gonna
there
have
might be and how many separate families.
That hasn't been my experience.
Okay, but somehow the kids need to get down to where the bus is gonna pick them up.
Okay.
And the obvious way, if I was a kid, I would go down that road to where the, you know, the bus is gonna be. And there will be cars on the road. So maybe there's another walkway that goes down that road.
And
Beside that road.
I was thinking even maybe a bike path also, because there's not really a bike access. So thinking of a path, a walking / bike path to Rhinebeck Road might make a lot of sense.
You have to be careful with the sidewalk here, because we don't, once you get to the end of this road, there's really nowhere for pedestrians to go. We don't really want to encourage people to walk on Rhinebeck, we want them to go, we want them to follow the stone pedestrians. So, you know, if we put a shelter here, that's one thing, but,
Could you connect
we have to
the stone
think about
path?
that.
Could you connect the further down the stone dust path to the entrance along
I'm
Rhinebeck
trying to remember
Road?
how we,
Isn't the town board working on a path all the way from Rhinebeck
It's on the other side of the road.
on the other side of the road?
Well, it seems to me, I mean, there's obviously a lot of questions around this particular aspect of the application. John, did you have something in mind?
The only other additional thing I wanted to add to this discussion is that the idea is that buses are going to be stopping on Rhinecliff Road. You may want to look at, Rhinecliff Road, you have the hill there and a turn. I don't know what the sight distances are like, and I ride Rhinecliff Road every day, and some people do drive pretty fast on there. So coming upon a stop bus could be a surprise for some people.
Well, I also think that any decision you make might need to be informed by the school. So I think a discussion is warranted with whoever's in charge of the busing program as to what their requirements are. I'm sure they have input that they must offer in these situations. And I don't know how you statistically come up with what the potential number of children might be or the ages. And I don't even know if all the kids, I assume high school kids get picked up differently than elementary school kids. It's a long time since I've had little children. So there's a lot, I think, in here, and I don't know if we need to keep digging at the details of it tonight. But I think we'll have to come back with some ideas.
Yeah, well, and I think it's an important requirement, because it's one of the few forms of mass transit that we actually have in this town, and it was a requirement that this project had access, ready access to mass transit. And I'm not seeing it in this plan. If you have to walk, I mean, how far is it from the core of the houses to the edge of the roadway? You know, it's a quarter mile or something like that. I mean, if getting into and out of this development requires the use of a car, then what's the sense of having it right next to the village? It can be anywhere in the town. You know, it doesn't have to be right.
But we have pedestrian access.
All right, I'd like to ask other planning board members if they have additional new comments that they'd like to offer this evening. Anything else rise to the surface that we want to bring out?
May I just say one more thing?
Sure. As long as it's not about houses.
I think that people are gonna walk down the driveway. It's going to happen. You know, if they're gonna go the other way, they're gonna walk down the driveway. So, you know, if it's possible for there to be a safe way to walk down that way, I think that would be wise.
Anyone else? John, anything you want to add at this time?
The only thing I wanted to just clarify in case board members didn't know that the seeker review was done by the town board in connection with the concept review, and their determination of significance was a negative declaration.
Okay. Jim? You have a draft procedural resolution? Thank you.
So there's a draft procedural resolution for the board's consideration for workforce housing, currently updated development, for site plan, wetlands permit, potentially also a special use permit, we'll look into that. Under Town Code Chapter 125 and Chapter 120 respectively for construction of workforce housing development on Rhinebeck Road within the Village Gateway zoning district, which will be rezoned to workforce housing per Town Code Section 125-64-487. Prior to issuance of any approval by the planning board, accepting the application supporting documents is adequate for further review, accepting the negative declaration and approval made by the Town of Rhinebeck Town Board in a resolution dated October 15th, 2024. Schedule the public hearing on the application for December 16th, 2024 at 6:05. We'll send it to the CAB for review, the WAC. We'll send it to HAPAC because there is a historic site on the property, although it is being preserved and avoided, so I don't think we'll have any concerns there, but we need to send it anyway. Dutchess County Planning, because it is a site plan review, and we need as 2 board members to conduct some type of site review.
Or is this one that, well, why don't we, I think this is one that we can select a date and make it available to all planning board members to make this site visit, if that's acceptable to the applicant. Mr. Carney, we would like to schedule the entire planning board to come. Okay, so we'll be in touch with you or Andy to come.
Sure.
Andy's hiding out in the hall.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Either way.
All right, we'll be in touch and we'll pick a date and hopefully we'll still continue to have some nice warm weather, at least in the foreseeable future. So.
I would just like to raise one question as point of clarity for John. The negative declaration under seeker doesn't squelch any of the board's own review, does it? It does not VAR review of the project.
Well, you're conducting a site plan review, so to the extent it doesn't crimp your site plan review at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there a way to get into the property now? Or, I mean, are there any rough roads?
No, the previous site visit was over there. We all met down at the bottom on Acid Drive. I think that's the best way up, walk up the driveway, Wells Manor, and then cut over. I think that's still the best. Last time, I think it was in May, it was heavily vegetated. Today it's a little better, so.
We make it a little bit better.
Well, I can't get a machine in there, I can't do any work, I can't do anything.
No, I understand, but it was very difficult. I will say to people
was.
that haven't been.
Where are heavy?
It's hard to really envision this because of the density of the growth on the property. We'll do our best.
Sure.
May I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved.
A motion, second? Second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, the motion carries. We'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good night.
You too. That concludes the application portion of this evening's meeting. We'll now move into the public hearing on the comment. And we're going to begin this evening with the Emily Dyer application for 52 to 54 Morton Road, site plan and special use permit, hardscaping, fencing, and sports court. Good evening, Mr. Ratchin.
Good evening, I'm Ben Ratchin, with Ratchin Landscaping. We're representing our clients on this proposed project. At the last couple meetings, there was numerous concerns raised, various things, the rigidity of the walls, the two separate fenced-in areas. As you can see, these new plans are significantly different from the previous plans. The retaining walls follow the natural curvature of the rock outcroppings on site. The lower fenced-in area, which is just a grass area, has been removed and it's just grass sort of framed by plantings. And the location of the sports court has changed a little bit and is actually going to require less of a variance from the ZBA. I think that's more or less the changes that have been made. And I have our engineer, Saltriano, here to handle any questions.
Okay, so just mentioned, the plan has changed, I think, pretty significantly from the previous version that had the sort of retaining walls and other things. They have provided the site plan, landscaping planning plan. So at this point in time, and it's obviously up to the board, I do think we need CPL to review the latest plans, as they are a significant change from the previous iteration as it relates to the retaining walls and drainage and other things like that. You may want to request that the applicant secure the cut into the hillside with some type of temporary netting or cover, and silt fence below the cut to prevent washouts, because we're getting into the time of year where if we ever get any rain, we might get some big rains. And there's a pretty big cut in the side of the hill right now. And then the previous plan sheets for the driveway, I assume, are still part of the application. We're going to make improvements to the driveway and the pillars.
Yeah, I believe it's still on the plan, just.
Right, so we're just updating these sheets. So
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then the only other item is just to note, obviously, as we're saying, with everyone right now, that as of January 1st, the DEC regulations change, and that may impact this project and the location of Hudson River.
Planning board members. Comments on the changes to the application?
I think the new plan is sensitive to the site, to the terrain of the site. I think it's a very intelligent plan. I do have some questions about how you're going to do things.
We need to use the microphone.
Microphone, thank you. Is it possible, Jim, to put the other plan up at the same time?
Yes.
So one of the questions I had been is, the earth has already been cut away, in a right angle. And so since you're restoring the terrain there, will you be bringing in soil? And how will you be compacting it? So now you have what looks like a natural slope coming from the woods. So you're returning the slope to some degree. Am I correct?
Correct, yeah.
And so that obviously has to stay in place, and I see a retaining wall there. But where will that soil come from? Or do you have a sense of how much soil you're going to be bringing in?
The majority of the soil that would be used for that would be utilized from soil that's on site. Obviously, all that would be compacted. Any granular soil would be compacted with a vibratory roller or plate compactor. Any non-cohesive soils would be, with a sheep's foot compaction.
And the sports court now, is it on a level that's higher than is currently excavated?
I would have to, I'd have to check the existing elevations to,
I looked at,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to the planning board. My name is Sal Triano. I'm from Crossland Engineering PLLC. The folks that have been working to try to help these folks get a sports court and full access area for one challenging site. As you folks have mentioned, there is a sort of existing sort of rectilinear cut that exists. The retaining walls we're proposing to put in onto that site are about 3.5 foot high. We're not planning on going any higher for numerous reasons. Our initial thought was it would be easier just to put in a single retaining wall and not do any real changes to what is currently there. However, we're respecting what the planning board is looking for, is something a bit more responsive to the slopes and configurations on the property. So in developing this, the sports court will be raised about a foot and a half, not anything significant. That allows us to take advantage of grade changes, which are about 7 foot in that particular cut area. So we're regrading of those areas with someone on site to fairly modest to fill in those just that corner. If I could get a little closer, I could sort of point where we're going. The limited work is right in here. That's where our access is. We're preserving all the other trees that are in that area too as part of this. So our previous proposal was to flatten things out a little bit more and allow us to have a slightly different orientation for the sport court, which encroached a bit closer into the property. So by doing all these manipulations, we actually minimize the amount of cuts that have to be done, as well as preserving the trees and limiting our site disturbance on site.
and then will topsoil be brought in?
Of course.
And
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's to support the plants and the plantings, it's a requirement.
and do you know how much topsoil will be brought in?
Part of the request from the engineer on the response we had the last time was to actually develop fill these estimates for this project. We want to actually get us to at least see how the concepts work with you folks rather than going through formal design several times, which we've already done 4 times. So we'd like to try to minimize that. So the next step is, after this, is to get them the cut and fill volumes. We'll do our typical cross sections, which is not required by the town engineer, but we're proposing to do that anyway, as well as a stormwater design. Right now, our previous design had a 50-year storm event. We'll run this one similarly on our connections and discharge points. So.
And there was a question about how the current conditions are going to be protected from rain, assuming we ever get any. What will be the plan for that?
That's a good point. Yes, I certainly hope that we start getting rain again. It's critical for, I think, everyone's livelihood as well as benefit. The design we have currently proposed is to, again, when we get close to the screen.
he's got a little water.
Oh, does it? Oh, great. Fantastic. That's something I did not bring.
Second button down.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so we're proposing a drainage swale that actually starts here and working our way all the way across. Previously, we had 2 drainage swales, one that would raise one more this direction and then one would go this direction. By capturing the bulk of the water at this point and routing it around this site, eliminates you can sort of see our cut areas across here. We're not proposing to change any of the stormwater profiles that access this particular point of the property. So we have actually eliminated the need to replace and do all the work that we initially thought we were going to do. That's part of our previous plan. Plus surrounding that sports court to where we did, if you recall, the sports court was actually out over here. So we trimmed up our total disturbance area on site by about a third. So which is pretty substantial. Again, respectful of all the comments and questions both you folks have as well as your engineer.
There was another question regarding stormwater, and that is, until you get at this and actually start the work, how will the area be protected? In case we get a lot of rain before you actually start this work.
Well, currently, there is both water logs as well as some erosion control of on-site process. I don't know when the last time you folks have been out to the site, but those temporary erosion control measures are in place. and it will remain in place until the work actually proceeds in accordance with our final design. Our designs will actually include silt fence that works in these areas here, around on this side, down here, and across that area. Then we will have just a limited disturbance fence that will go up along this side. Intermediate hay bales and fire logs and mulch logs and things like that will be installed as the site progresses. Like with any project, we try to develop the lowest portion, get that somewhat stabilized, especially with the retaining walls. It is going to be sequential in nature. We're not going to be able to start too heavily with the entire site. You have to start at the beginning and work things through a sequence. That is entirely up to the contractor, and that would be Ben Rathjen to sequence the work. But the installation of the erosion control has to be done to protect the quality of the water getting down to the current site control.
You're not concerned about the cut that's there now? No. So I know it's a drop off 7 feet.
No.
Slope.
Yeah, it's actually almost 7 foot.
Yeah.
It's in good shape overall. It hasn't gone anywhere since I've actually visited the site back at the beginning of the year when we were having some substantial rainfall events. So I don't envision any substantial problems with bulk soil transport even on site. But as part of the work that the town has already done, there are clear silt fences and some of the erosion control measures in place that do have to be maintained accordingly.
Yeah, I just saw the picture. I didn't know if this said. I didn't see the picture. One item I didn't mention is we do have the ZBA. This has gone to the ZBA. There's a ZBA referral, so we have to get the response from the ZBA before the planning board would move forward. And that ZBA referral is something we'll talk about later in the evening.
Anyone else from the planning board? Sharon?
The map says, under there will be no terrace walls, it will just be plain stone walls. It won't be terraced.
Well, as part of the development, it is terraced to create breakage grade. So you start with the lower elevation, it comes up 3.5 feet. It's moderately flat. There's basically a half-foot grade change on that slope, on that terrace area. Then this is flattened out to create the grass field. The soils that are removed from here will be used for the backfill accordingly. With the secondary retaining wall that's here, again, it's a 3.5 foot high wall. So it is something that does have the benched approach. It's not terraces one on top of the other. It is spread out quite dramatically. And it accommodates the ability and has the ability for plantings that are proposed and allow access for maintenance long term. So it's not something that's a steep slope that just has a wall. It's something that's got a wall space for plantings, another wall, then the field comes in, another wall. So the intent is to really manage the site effectively in a smooth orientation.
Go ahead.
On the diagram there, under the notes, it says that the grass field fence will be 4 feet high, but I thought you said there was no fence.
The grass field fence was removed. There is, if there's a note along those lines, I apologize, it was left on from the previous revisions. But there is a fence that goes around the sports court. That's to corral the balls and things from that particular feature.
And you said you're going to get soil on site, but that's only going to be from where the grass field is going to be?
The soil that's going to be used for any backfill would actually be from the retaining wall footings and excavation that goes in, as well as then the grass field area and any little minor adjustments for the stormwater complex within that area. So again, the intent is to limit the amount of disturbance areas and minimize the amount of need for materials either to be imported or exported off-site. Topsoil, of course, will be imported. There is a small stockpile of topsoil on site. That'll be used first, of course, but all the other materials have to be brought. So there's gravel that goes behind the retaining walls, the stone walls themselves, those kind of features.
I have a question about how the ends of the walls, the retaining walls, are going to terminate. Are they just kind of die into the hillside? Or? Okay, so there's no corner or anything like that. It's going to be a smooth transition into the grade.
Right, and what's really nice about the layout too is you can sort of see how in the areas where it gets a little bit steeper, they sort of curve around from more perpendicular.
Okay.
So the grades will fold around the corners of those walls at any of the terminal points.
Very nicely done. What is this? Sean? So-
The only thing I was just gonna say is, thank you. You took a lot of advice from us and you guys put it into it, and I think a very, very different plan is in front of us.
So this was, we referred this before to Christian, and we will be referring it again this evening. Christian, is there anything, any questions you might have this evening while they're here?
Not at this time. I just want to make sure that you're under an acre of disturbance, correct?
Pardon?
You're under 1 acre of
Oh,
disturbance.
dramatically. I think we're in like the 2,700, 27,000 square foot.
And that's what's disturbed right now, including the
Correct.
the cut. The couple photos I got of that cut, about 6-7 foot. It was pretty straight up and down.
Yep.
What's your plan on trying to stabilize that?
So during the short term, it doesn't really require any stabilization. There is the erosion control. If you want to go back to the existing plan, that'd be helpful. So this discussion. On that side, we just step back.
No, it's easy to see.
Oh, it actually does. I can work with this one. It's more clear. See, that has the overall survey of the property, but the next, there we go. So, what we've just delineated, this is the area of disturbance that's on the current plan that we're proposing. The steep slope area is the spot where there's the sort of a break in the contours. So we're proposing just to make sure that we cover all the other areas that are currently picked up and disturbed. That's our limit of correction and areas that will be restoring up on this side of the site. Where the current drop is, there is a bit of a depression. It does corral and hold stormwater as well. So any of the loose material that may drop off of that steep slope or that vertical cut isn't going to have the opportunity to really migrate too far. Ben currently has the siltfaxes and the mulch logs that run across this entire area, as well as a couple intermediate ones. So
And that's what you currently have in place now?
that's what's currently in place at this point.
Because it's a work in progress, normally you review the site plan before the work is
I know,
done, so it's kind of.
this is something that happened a little bit differently.
Right,
So
right.
we're just trying to make sure we keep everything currently, in the best condition.
One more thing, it's not necessarily an engineering comment, but I think maybe to inform the board, maybe 1 or 2 rough sample section lines showing the retaining walls. I think that, just as a visual exhibit.
Right, and there is a generic cut section through the retaining walls, but the general orientations are going to be, like I had mentioned before, part of our final package. I didn't want to go through the full designs of everything, as we're sort of doing fairly substantial modifications to plans. But there will be a full sections that go through to show you cut and fill, and that'll be also used for development of cut and fill volumes. That was one of your questions.
And all your walls are below 4 foot high?
Yes, they're 3.5 feet.
Okay.
Anyone else from the planning board?
Just one last thing for me. Are you confident that this is not going to be visible from the Hudson River or from the Rhinebeck across?
Not
The seating area statewide.
This is a fairly secluded vista in this particular area, especially to the south and to the east side. On the west side towards the river, between the buildings and structures there, as well as the grade changes closer to the river, it eliminates the possibility of this.
Anyone else? Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment on this application? All right, if not, I need to have a motion to refer this back to Christian and Sabrina, and to continue the public hearing until, that would be December 16th. May I have that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second? Motion and second, all those in favor? Opposed, abstention. And I would reiterate the thanks that were offered earlier on behalf of the board. We appreciate the work into revising this, and I think it's much more sensitive and much more being property. So thank you for your help.
Thank you folks for your interaction. It's been good, thank you, I appreciate it.
The next application this evening on the public hearing is that of Wildflower School, term 7085 and 7191 Route 9, site plan and special use permit for daycare and nursery school. Before you begin, I just wanted to make a comment because I see lots of new faces here, and I hear lots of noises that I'm not used to hearing, and so I'm guessing that we have a bunch of people here because we received a lot of letters in support of the need for nursery school daycare in the area. And I think I can speak for everybody on the planning board and say that we understand totally how important this type of service is in the community today. But I also want to say up front to the folks who are new to this process that we are not here tonight to decide the importance or significance of the application. We are here to review and deliberate around the technical aspects of the application. So we appreciate and love your children. That's why we take care of these applications, because we want to ensure their safety as much as you want to ensure their safety. So we've heard the letters, and we appreciate it, and we'll hear you tonight. But please understand, we are not in a position to be making a decision yet on whether this application is approved or not. There's a lot of outstanding feedback that has to come from DOT. We've spoken to them. That's going to take some time. So I don't want you to be disappointed. We will hear you, and we will welcome your comments, but please don't raise your expectations to the point that we can make this happen without all the proper steps. So with that said, turn it back to you.
Thank you. Good evening. Good to see you all again. My name is Anusha Hashimburn, and I'm here today to provide you with some of the updates that we've made to our site plan about our Montessori. So as you know, we're proposing to open a daycare center at 7085 Route 9. When we first came across this property, we recognized its potential and its several challenges. What drew us to it was its location, its proximity to the towns, the availability of a green space behind the property that allows children to spend extended time outside in nature, and the opportunity to provide affordable housing to teachers in the residents, the two-family residents on the north side of the property. For the past few months, we've worked closely with the Department of Health to ensure that the site meets the highest safety standards. Alongside the Department of Health engineers, and Marty Williams, an engineer who's going to speak a little bit after me, we've conducted thorough site tests, we've incorporated their feedback, we've made significant updates to our original plans. For example, we have abandoned the existing septic system to ensure that the entire property is ready for long-term safety and functionality. We've moved the well to the back of the property to provide adequate spacing from our septic system and our neighbor's septic system. These provisions also guarantee that the water on the property meets the Department of Health standards for public water supply. Second, ensuring the safety of the driveway has been another top priority. We've worked extensively with our lead engineer, the Department of Transportation, and our attorneys to design and refine the driveway according to strict New York State standards. The result is a plan that prioritizes safety and efficiency. It provides clear visibility for vehicles entering and exiting the property and minimizes potential risks. It also facilitates, with the U-shaped driveway, a very smooth traffic flow, allowing for quick and organized drop-offs and pickups for families. This design meets all of the safety and functional requirements set forth by the New York Department of Transportation. We've also carefully incorporated your feedback and revised our plans to ensure compliance with all of the zoning and site plan requirements. Since our last meeting, we've made the following updates to the plan. First, we have repositioned the parking spaces to be at least 50 feet from the road line, as the zoning requires, and ensured an adequate number of spaces. We've added bollards, boulders between the parking spaces and play areas. This is not the updated plan. I'll continue with pull that up. We've added bollards between the parking spaces and play areas in order to eliminate the risk of any accidents in the parking lots. We've also adjusted the exit, the southern exit of the driveway to ensure that there is no impact at all on the neighbor's easement that we were talking about the last time. So when you pull up the new plans, you'll see those. Our lead engineer, Marty Wilms, will speak shortly to provide more details on that, and I'll let him talk you through those approvals, which we anticipate to come very soon. Jim?
I don't remember seeing the plans.
Yeah, here it is.
That's approved.
So we, as you know, we've started this process after recognizing the enormous burden that a lack of adequate childcare in the area places on families. Red Hook and Rhinebeck and beyond. We've experienced this firsthand ourselves. It's been a long, very challenging process, but we are committed to making this happen. We're excited for the value that this brings to our families. We hope here that you've had the chance to review the letters of support and you're going to hear from some families today. As we move forward, I know that we're still waiting on a few approvals. We were hoping to ask you to consider granting us a conditional approval today. This would allow us to swiftly begin the permitting process as soon as those final approvals come in. And that would ensure enough construction time to be open to families in the fall. I'm going to take the floor to Marty. He's going to speak a little bit more about the driveway and the site.
Hi, thanks folks. We were hoping to have more information for you tonight on our feedback from the DOT. We were expecting a letter last week, but he had an illness, and so he was out last week. So it all got pushed. And we're hoping to hear back from them in the next few days.
At what stage of the review process are they?
So we've submitted our driveway access plan and our Perm 33 form to the DOT. He's reviewed it. We've had several phone conversations where we've gone over any items that had concerned him and made changes to the driveway, as Nisha had mentioned. We worked on on not infringing on the access of the neighbor to the south, and just making sure that our driveway that's proposed complies with any DOT standards for access to Route 9. So essentially, we're waiting on a review. We filled out the first two parts of the Perm 33 form, and he's going to be getting back to us in a few days. So we're close. He said conceptually we're there, but there's a couple of points that they want to address.
John, have you received the copy of the easement that exists on this property and the neighboring property?
Yes, Jim sent that to us.
And you haven't, I'm assuming you haven't had a chance to look at that?
We haven't had a chance to look at it yet. But, I did wonder whether, I think it was conveyed to us that your attorney had advised you that there wouldn't be any issues with regard to the easement. Do you have a letter or some kind of written opinion from your attorney?
Yeah, so he had, that's why he reached out to you to talk to you directly about that. He emailed me last Tuesday.
Okay, what's his name or her name?
Justin Cole.
Oh, gotcha, okay. Well, all right, we'll get in touch with Justin and we'll look at the material. We'll have something for the next meeting.
Okay, just make sure that we have all the information, because we have received very recently a letter of comment from the neighbor who challenges that, so we want to make sure that we have everything relative to that to provide John, because the neighbor obviously has a different opinion about that easement. So whatever you have, you can provide to expedite the review, we can greatly appreciate.
This is it, this is the vision, this is done.
All right, Jim, I'm gonna let you.
So I missed this, sorry, but I missed this plan coming in, but it doesn't really change most of my comments which stand right now. Obviously, they're showing a boulder in there, which is great, because as I said before, I want to make sure we have something solid between the parking space and the play area. I've seen too many cars jumping curbs the last couple of years. It is before the town of Red Hook Planning Board, I believe, right now, so I think we're all aware of what's going on. They're reviewing the fence. We're reviewing it here, and it was referred to them. I guess, my main questions that still remain are that, any details on the sign need to be provided, the actual details of the writing on the sign, everything else needs to be
I
submitted.
won't be putting the sign.
No sign at all? Okay. So that takes care of that item. Then the other two that I really have are just that, we need review and referral from Department of Health. Typically, the planning board does not act before you have Department of Health review and approval. And we need at least that conceptual DOT approval before we can do anything, because the access to the site is obviously critical to whether or not you're going to be able to use the site. And there's a DOT permit and then a discussion of any changes to the easement with your neighbor and the legal, elements that involve around that, which I will defer to John, if you want to talk about those, but we need to make sure that both of those are clear before, obviously, anything can move forward. So those are the big ones right now, and then the other ones that I've been saying to everybody is that once we hit January 1, the DEC regs come in. There is a wetland well behind this property, but this would probably fall within that wetland area. So we'll have to take a look at that. We're still trying to figure out exactly what those new DEC regs are. So they're substantially more significant than the area.
Okay, believe that there was a second site visit conducted, is that correct? Okay.
And if I could just address a couple of comments.
Sure.
So in terms of Department of Health review, we've submitted plans to the Department of Health. We've received a review letter, and we should be going back into the Department of Health next week. End of this week, maybe.
Could we get a copy of that review letter?
Sure.
Typically, we look at those and just make sure that we're kind of keeping up with things and make sure we're all in agreement on where things stand. The biggest issue that I have with Department of Health is just the discussion of how many bedrooms you're going to have in that structure, and then obviously make sure that they approve the system you're putting in.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no problem.
So all of that plays in there.
And we'll get you an electronic copy of the submitted plan so we can have that.
Well, I have it here. I missed it. But I'll be able to download it.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, so that's fine, just in terms of the 3-bedroom that's there now and the loading that will be part of the daycare. That's all clearly on the plan. We can talk about that. The driveway to the south and the easement is there. Also on those plans, on the, so, let me see here.
Second button.
So this is the residential driveway to the south that we're talking about. Here's this 20-foot easement, 20-foot wide, 10 feet on either side of the property line. Right now, the center line of the property line falls pretty much right in the middle of the existing driveway. And so what we've done is the first shift was we shifted our driveway north to get our driveway out of that, off of the property line within our area of easement, so that we, and also provided for a residential, enough space for a residential driveway to the south. This guy. After talking with the DOT and also with our project lawyer, we shifted the driveway further north to get completely out of the easement, so that if she so chooses, the neighbor to the south can use the entirety of the easement to access her property. But right now, what's shown right there, that's a driveway that complies with the residential access to Route 9 for the DOT. but it can actually extend over to a bit further north, on the north side of that easement. So we feel like we've really tried hard to not block any access and not change the way she accesses the property.
You know, I think we understand that, just the question of any legal requirements in that easement to ensure that all parties involved agree to those changes, and that's what John's gonna have to look at, I can't speak to that. In my talks with DOT, you know, I do know you guys talked to them, and this was kind of the concept we came up with, but my understanding is you stand in the discussion to go with them to ensure that this is going to work for them, and that's what we need from them, is that preliminary state up and sign off. They're okay with that concept, because obviously access to this property is going to be the opposite place of that. So who, if this moves forward, the DOT says it's okay and you're okay with it, how does that easement then change? Who changes the driveway on the neighbor's property?
So the easement would stay as is. The southern boundary of the neighbor's driveway stays exactly as it is. And so essentially, we're just shifting our driveway out of that easement area. There's no change to the easement in my mind that would be required. We're not giving her more. We're not shifting that line of easement at all. We're just saying we're not going to use it. We're entitled to use another portion of our property to access Route 9. That's what we're going to do.
So you're giving her adequate width. You're not minimizing or changing it. She's not going to be required or need to make any changes to the driveway.
That's right.
You're going to do work within the easement to put the separation area between.
Yes. Initially, we started out where we were thinking about trying to shift the driveway, her driveway south and modify the guide rail entry there to provide room for that. But just in working on it and in talking with everybody, we just decided to try to get our driveway out of the way.
And how, so the driveway to the north will be the driveway home?
Yes.
And we will loop around and we will exit on this relocated section. And then her driveway will be immediately adjacent to your exit. So her entrance and exit will be right, literally side by side.
Complies with DOT standards, but yeah, the next driveway.
And there's some greenery there that'll be planted. Not on
So
the
if
eastern
you're
outside.
coming from the south and you're really not sure where you're going, and you've got your folks from your facility exiting and somebody trying to enter hers, what kind of problem could arise at that time? Because we've all driven this road, we know the sight distances are difficult from both directions. So I'm just imagining cars trying to come out, cars trying to go in, and how that's really very clear visually.
In terms, visually,
Is someone living there?
No.
Oh.
But, and not, well, I think
Yeah,
when she
not
was
now.
here, she indicated she was not currently living there, but it is a residential property, and
Right.
the driveway exists to get to that.
Is there any distance between those two driveways?
yeah, between the, so this is the extent of the entrance, and then this is the driveway.
Okay, all right.
So, and this is greenery that will break up those two. And also, we will have one-way signage for the exiting and entering the driveway, pointing out to, so that's, well, it's an indicator,
It is an
what I'm
indicator. I
approaching.
just having myself driven in there, don't want to minimize our discussion around how, traffic is coming from the north, speeding,
Yep.
people are coming from the south, trying to turn in. It is a confusing space, and it's tight and compact, so it's really an important thing that we have to talk through.
And the entering traffic will, of course, go to the north of her driveway, so that shouldn't be as much of an effect. It's that's exiting southern traffic.
You're entering public, visitors entering the southern neighbor and not go through.
Well, I'm sorry.
If people are coming to go to the neighbor's property, They will be cutting across in front of, is it, saying there?
Yeah, I mean, they'll be going down, like, if I were out on Route 9 and I wanted to go south, I see lots of cars go by me, and I can't go out before they're passing me. So I would pull out to Route 9 and I would see approaching traffic, say they've got their right hand blinker on to turn into the neighbors to the south. They would go past me like any other, like in any other situation and turn in safely. And same deal, you know, pulling out, they're not there. I'm looking to the north, I'm looking for someone pulling on, pull on. And then coming from the south, coming up, yeah, so we'll be going into the north entrance on that car.
I think the good news is we're talking very limited drop-offs, pickup times. It's not like all day, it's not a stop and shop. So I think, you know, there is some things, but definitely of concern, especially after there's
The folks who made the site visit.
You want to go first, Edna?
Yeah, I have some questions that arose from the site visit. One of the things that you mentioned is that the neighbor sometimes wants to enter the property further to the west, right?
Right here.
And so if that's the desire, they would then drive on that easement area, is that correct?
Yes.
And that easement area is on your property, or will be on your property. So what will the surface of that be?
Right now, it's lawn.
It's lawn.
It's lawn, right.
Is it likely to continue to be lawn, so she will drive on your lawn to get further into the property?
Yeah, because it doesn't seem, it's not her primary driveway. It doesn't seem like it, well, I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem like it would be the kind of thing that would happen all the time. So we don't have any plans to make that more resilient, you know, but.
And the easement does not require you to make that part of the driveway, to make that a driveway surface.
No, just needs to be there, so she has the option of, to access her property through that easement.
Right.
That can't be, we can't limit that.
And in order to move your driveway, what you have had to do is to reduce the size of the circular lawn area, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And there are 2 trees currently at the,
There's one there.
right,
Kind of at the corner.
Yeah. Which one here?
and so do you think they're going to make it, those 2 trees?
The one to the south, I don't believe, but you know what, I haven't taken a close look at that, but I don't believe the one to the south. We've shifted, when we need to make these changes with our driveway, our access to Route 9, it's all taking place in this area right here.
Right.
This has stayed fairly close to the beginning, so we think the tree to the north will be okay, but the tree to the south is probably the
Have you considered some additional plantings besides grass? Right now it's indicated for grass.
No, just what we talked about last month, just the hedges here.
And that's low.
Yes.
I don't have any other at the moment.
One of the things that I asked about at the site visit was the existing one-story building to the south and west. And I believe the answer was that that's just going to be used as like maybe a play space. It wasn't really going to be finished.
No,
But it does have a septic system, so there's going to be a toilet in there?
there will be a toilet and plumbing in that building. It will be used as a multi-purpose space. But kids are in there, we need a toilet in there,
Okay.
and sinks.
That's all I can think of at the moment. Oh, yeah, that was the other thing. At drop-off time, you had stated that the parents don't get out of the car, that the teachers take the kids and bring them inside. And I would assume the same would be true at pickup time as well. Seems like there's a lot of variation among the different car seats and how they attach and buckle in. And also in the documentation that I was reading, it didn't seem quite that explicit that, it said the teachers would be present to help the kids in and out, not that it would be the exclusive, there'd be a rule, hard and fast rule, that,
It would be present.
but that parents wouldn't be getting out of, because
Right.
the issue is that people, quite naturally, they're gonna make friends with people in the daycare, and they're gonna linger a little bit, and then you're gonna have this big stop up. It's really important for this particular location that we not have traffic backing up onto Route 9. That's a very, very high risk.
Right, in the bottom of that document that I sent over, there was a paragraph that said it would be in our policies that parents are not to exit their vehicles at drop-off or pickup time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed by the participation of the community members and the expression of the need for this daycare. And I have to thank everyone for stepping up. It is really important. I know it was something that we struggled with when our kids were small. And I recognize the importance of a good functioning daycare and preschool. But I have to kind of separate that from the constraints of this site. Likewise with the workforce housing that we heard earlier, that's a very important thing for this community to have. But is this a workable location? So I think that there are some hitches here that have to get sorted out, and that's where I stand on it. So thank you.
Any planning board members? Yes.
We've also just now heard that Rhinebeck has approved the project tonight.
They're part of it.
Yes.
Okay. Then the driveway's not there.
Of course.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for the folks that are here. Jim, is there anything else?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we talked about, we talked about the existing one-story building, and Craig just reminded me. What is the use of that right now? Just this shed storage building? If that's gonna change from a multi-use building that's gonna have a toilet and everything in it, that's a change of use, and if it's going to change from that use, it becomes an accessory structure. And accessory structures require 75% of the side yard setback, which is 37.5 feet, we only have 31.2, which means you have to get a variance from the ZBA. If it's gonna be used for any other than storage.
But the use is the same for the whole property.
No, that's, the setbacks are per building. So you have setbacks for your principal building and the others, which are gonna be used the way they are. You have the numbers there, but if you're gonna convert that from just a typical shed, just a standard storage shed into an actual use, then that now becomes part of the review, and you need to meet that side yard setback, and unfortunately, you're completely short, so you can do it as you get it.
I just want to say one thing on that. The shed it is present. The folks who have been to the site probably can see that it's not, it's rotten in places and not very, it's not a building that seems like it's going to stand the test of time. I wonder if part of our plan, if we were to propose that we shift that building back up out of that.
If you're gonna demolish it and move it to the setback, then you need the variance. But by the change of use and making it a more intense use than it is now, it then becomes part of the review, unfortunately, you need that setback. You need to meet the existing setback.
Okay.
So it's 6 inches, right?
6 feet, roughly 6 feet.
6 feet.
You have to be 37.5 feet, max 75% of the side yard setback. So you need 37.5, and I think you have 31.2. So, again, we're just, trying to let you know what the issues are. So I think there are 4 issues out there. We have the legal opinion on the easement, the DOH, the DOT concept approval, DOH approval. We need something, really, I think we need something from OCFS stating that this is a use, that will work for them, and then potentially the variance if we want to change the use of that building.
Okay, so regarding mostly this, I sent an email up with their standards. They will not approve any application unless the town has approved. So the first order is the town approves the site use, and then they will approach the application. And I could put that in a PDF in an email.
So if that's the case, when you approve it though, and they don't approve it, then you realize you've gone through the process without the CFS approval, so that's
It's
just.
like, they will approve it along with, I've looked at the regulations, I've seen like two sinks in each classroom, like bathrooms with 3 foot, I know the regulations, they're not gonna deny the application if we have certain changes which we're making.
Just wanted to bring that up. Usually, we require all outside approvals, but if you're saying we won't need that and you expect we will get that, then that's, I don't have a lot of experience with OCFS, but I do know they do need approvals. So
Yeah. They
just
will
realizing
have
that's still a step that you're going to obviously have to do in order to make it through.
If I connect the one-story building to somehow, do I still have to, I'm trying to think about ways not to shift an entire barn.
No, I get it. I mean, the easiest thing to do is just use it for storage. Better way to
It opens up parking space
I understand. But I don't think, it's just something that it's unfortunate for me.
Anyone else on the committee?
Just to clarify, the shed is not like something that's brought on a truck that has easy mobility, is that right? It's like, almost like,
It's also not like frost walls and, built well. It's like on loose cinder block.
Just, I think for ZBA, have you guys ever worked on? So the ZBA process is a separate process, and just, it doesn't mean that you don't, you just have to get their approval, it's just, it's not like you can't use it. It's just a separate board, that is a separate process, and I know Gretchen can help you out, give you more information about it, but just after today's meeting, assess that, obviously, because if the law is the law, and so we just have to deal with that, but there's a process to get it approved outside of that. So maybe talk to Gretchen after this meeting regarding that building and go from there on that. But it is a separate process, separate board.
also not to complicate things in the question, if they wanted to remove that from the current application, but then potentially add it later as a separate application from ZBA, is that, because is that complicated? If they needed the space later?
Or aren't they tying it into the same septic?
Well, I think it's,
It would not be able to. It would have to be shown as remaining as an existing structure with no connections to it. They'd have to come back to this board and then discuss it later, so it'd be a whole new set of reviews and approvals.
and the water and the septic, yeah, in the plan. Anyone else? I am now at the point where I generally give it up for public comment. I would, if you have submitted a letter, that is already on file and we received copies of it, so I would suggest that it's not necessary for you to read that letter into the record. If you have not commented before in either a letter or some other form of communication, I would invite you to come up, state your name and your address, and as briefly as possible, make your comments, and if you're able to comment on the actual application and the specifics of the application, that would be helpful as well. So I'll leave it up to you to decide what word. And we try to keep our comments to 3 to 4 minutes in the public hearing. Yep.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Lyon. I live on Shore Boulevard in Rhinebeck. I just wanted to speak to the comment on getting kids in and out of the car. My oldest and my youngest both attend a daycare and preschool where the teachers mandate you don't get out of the car. It's a very small driveway. Actually, I drive by this property almost every day, and it's much more driveway space than the preschool currently has up in Tivoli. The kids get out pretty easily, to your valid point. The two preschool teachers get the kids in and out very quickly, very easily every day. There's minimal backing out onto the main road. And I think it's a valid concern. I have worked through the process as a concerned parent with that same thought. And it goes very seamlessly in a much smaller space. But I know that I've sent an email and expressed my concern, but I did want to speak to the driveway. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Anna Gregg. I'm with the board for your review and for the opportunity to comment. I'll skip some of the stuff. I know that you all know how important the program is to the community. I want to speak to a couple of topics. One is the residential building on the property and how important that is. We all sat through a workforce housing presentation before this public hearing, and I know that that topic is so critical for the area. And I think one thing that's very special about this application and this specific property is the opportunity to offer the teacher housing on site. And that's something that is pretty unique to this property, and a reason I think to try to fit, fit this project into the property. Another thing that I wanted to mention about the easement, I'm not a Nucleus lawyer, I'm a lawyer myself, but separately. And from what I understand in moving of the driveways is that they have fully separated the two driveways, and obviously, Justin will respond appropriately, but my understanding is that the easement has been essentially completely given to the neighbor. She can have her driveway where it is, she can move her driveway in and out of the easement, and they've kind of said, we're going to move our driveway away to make sure that this is not an issue. And the last thing I'll say is I very much understand that this process is a technical one, and it's not about how important or how wonderful a specific project is, but I also think that those aspects of the project are important to keep in mind, especially as the board just considers timeliness and proper attention to the matter, that it's not a luxury housing development that can come up for 10 years. Like we're waiting for them to open the doors so we can send our kids. So we appreciate your attention.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, my name is May Ryan. I live at 111 Fairwood Lane in Rhinebeck. I have a 5-month-old, and I would deeply appreciate a place like this opening because there are so few options that have infant rooms in the area. It's really rare people drive to Poughkeepsie for things like this, and so that is one particular part of this childcare center that I think is important to consider as well, that it's offering something that's really unique to the area.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Agatha Basilar. I live in Red Hook. I head up the Red Hook Chamber of Commerce, and I'm the mother of this 8-month-old Octavia. I'm not here in an official capacity, but just to give a short business case, this makes it more attractive to live in the Hudson Valley. It allows entrepreneurs to pursue their craft and start their businesses if they have young children. And then just from a personal, just to share a personal experience, I did not submit a letter. I am looking for childcare, and I've had to reach out to a bunch of private nannies because I haven't been able to find a place to drop her off during the day. I'm 32 years old. I'm trying to build up my career and would like to get back to work and have not been able to. Even though I wanted to stay home the first 6 months, I'd like that to change soon. And like May said, it's pretty unique to find an infant through so close by. I guess I'm blanking. Oh, yes, I'm part of a WhatsApp group with mothers. And we shared a little bit of information about this wildflower school and asked, for those who live near Rhinebeck, how many of you would sign your child up for the school? And over 30 moms said yes, I would enroll for fall 2025. And so even if this school was started then, it wouldn't even meet the demand of what we need right now. And so I really hope that there's a concentrated effort to get this approved and get through the technical difficulties. It is so important, so thank you so much. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Nona Willis-Aronowitz. I actually live in Kingston, which is just across the river. And the fact that I'm even here means that the dearth of infant care is really dire. This is 20 minutes away from my house, and still I was like, yes, that's an amazing thing. I just wanted to speak to, I don't know if the neighbor is like here or involved, but the fact that this person doesn't even live at the spot, just like on a personal level, kind of galls me. It seems that this is a technical process, but as a community vibe and feel, it feels really off and wrong to me. And as somebody who actually lives next door to a daycare, I just can't help but think that, yeah, not only the speed of the process, but also just the priority of who gets to say something. It just seems that somebody who isn't even living there shouldn't be able to derail a project like this. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to December 16th.
So moved.
Motion, second? All those in favor? Motion will be continued, and we'll, as you get additional information, obviously, we gratefully receive it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Get those children to bed. And may I say, they've been all very well behaved, so.
Wonderful, and thank you all for coming. Young and old.
That concludes the public hearing portion of this evening's meeting. We will now move into old business. First, order of old business is that adjournment of this analysis. Public terrace, I don't even know why it's open.
Freezing here.
All right. Since we last met, I think the only developments, we submitted a letter from the biologist that reviewed the wetlands, certifying that the flags were indeed correct, and currently, I believe we're waiting for the report from Hudsonia.
Yep, I've been in touch with Eric Kiviat. He advised me that the report is just about done. The only thing he's waiting for, he needs some information about tree replacement ratios that he needs to get from another colleague. He expects that to be forthcoming shortly, and he should have his report shortly. The other item is at the last meeting, Mr. Leary was here, and we agreed that our office would do some more research into the issue of the site plan approval map note that required the driveway to come off of Barrett Tyler. And since that meeting, Kim's done a lot of work digging into the sort of the chain of subdivisions that's taken place that ended up culminating in the creation of this lot. It was a little bit more work than we anticipated. She had mentioned to you at the last meeting that she hoped to have a memo for the board detailing that tonight. It's not quite ready. It will be ready and submitted to the board by the end of the week, I think it'll be shared, we'll share that also with the applicant's representatives. And, but Kim did send you over the weekend an email that discussed what she's found so far, what the memo's going to say, and which is essentially that she looked into the history. We will document the history for the board in the memo, but she said that it's our opinion, you know, as your lawyers, that we didn't think that there's been a material change sufficient to justify a change to the map note. But that's our recommendation. The decision on that issue isn't with us, but it's actually with the board. And so Kim will have the memo for you by the end of the week, and she's hoping, and it'll give you a good, it'll take you through what's kind of a complicated situation. She's gonna have the maps attached to that and take you through, and then you'll be in a position to make your own decision about whether you think there's been a material change in circumstance and whether or not there's a basis for the board to want to change the map note.
I thought it was pretty clear in her memo that legally the board should not change the location of the driveway from what was approved previously. But I just want to say that even if that weren't the case, I think that the driveway should be as was previously approved for a number of reasons. One is the obvious safety reason, but if some steps were to be proposed to carve down that hillside in order to give a better, site clearance, I think that would be actually contrary to the requirements of our site plan regulations, which state, where possible, natural or existing topographic patterns which contribute to beauty and character shall be preserved. So the planning board, unless there was a really good reason, would not want to approve changing the topography of the land there. So that's one reason why I think that the driveway should go where it was previously approved. Secondly, I think it's in the interest of the town not to have unnecessary driveway cuts. I mean, the whole point of trying to maintain a certain ambiance, a certain rural ambiance, is to reduce that where you can. And so in this case, it is reduced. So, at least two homes should be using a single driveway cut. So that's where I come out. I'd like to hear where everybody else comes out.
I got the same impression from the memo that we did. Yes. They're supposed to use the county. Or at least that's what it was leading to.
Well, I think that Kim's memo to us over the weekend, I think, stated very clearly what the position is, and that the shall is an important distinction, and I agree. I think that even though the question had been raised previously, could we change this? That's not a direction I would like to go in, because I think setting a precedent in a situation like that would not be a wise move. The shall was there for a reason when the subdivision occurred, and I, for one, would intend to support that decision and ask for the driveway to go back to the proposed cul-de-sac. That's where I stand. Others?
I agree with you.
Yeah, I have yet to see a compelling reason for not using the drive off of Barrett Tyler. I think it doesn't have to be a cul-de-sac, but the language is clear that it's a shared drive, and it identifies it, locates it. There is the issue of the wetland that needs to be traversed, and the maps that the applicant presented showed that alternate off of Barrett Tyler going straight through the wetland. without exploring the possibility of skirting around the wetland or perhaps going within the buffer zone, which I believe we would just issue a wetlands permit for the disruption within the buffer zone. But it'd be a feasible approach and would be much less impactful on the appearance from afterglow.
And there's no need to go all the way to the proposed cul-de-sac area.
Yeah.
Just as the other occupant
Yes.
using the driveway has just cut off very quickly. You can do where it's most convenient for you, given the terrain. And we've walked it. Clearly, it is possible to put a good driveway in.
And I think one of the other objections was the fact that I think it was called Lot B, one of the earlier lots that actually currently has access off of Mansacanning, might possibly exercise their easement rights on the neighbor's property and access the shared driveway as they are entitled to by deed. And I don't really see, I don't see the issue with that. And it does seem kind of speculative and sort of stretching the prospect that they would traverse their entire property just to get to a shared cul-de-sac to use 200 feet of plowed driveway.
Well, I mean, with the rules are the rules, so that comes first and foremost. When we walked the property, I felt really concerned that the driveway where they were gonna put on the cul-de-sac would have more disruption to a lot of the stone walls and elements that I think are also really important on that site. And it's unfortunate that some of the disruption has already been done to the other site, and I agree about having an extra cut. But to be honest, my gut and the impacts to some, I mean, depending on where that placement is, which is a huge piece to what you're saying, because there's some flexibility. But if it goes off the cul-de-sac, I think it would be very important that some further disruption around the stone walls and some other stone elements that I saw are not messed with. And the existing cut felt like it was not going to cause that. And so I did prefer that when I was on site. So that's my opinion.
I think one of the things about it though is the existing cut will not be, there will be more disruption and more disturbance required to complete that by taking out that in order to, so there's going to be more disturbance either in my opinion, on either side of this. Well, it's going to be one way or it's going to be the other, so that's just my opinion. John, anything you want to add?
No. No, I agree with most of the comments of the board tonight. And, you know, there's a law in place for us to follow, and that's what we're supposed to do as a board. And this is a position where that's what we're doing.
Well, this isn't obviously an official vote, but I think in terms of it being similar to a straw poll, it's an indicator to you of we will eagerly await Kim's final report, and we will act on that in an official capacity when we get it. But I think this conveys to you the sense of the board at this time and offers you an opportunity to talk this through and to consider alternatives to the application that you have prepared as of now.
Well, we look forward to receiving Kim's memo and Eric's memo and considering all of the parts of the project. I mean, specifically the topography, the wetlands, the cuts to land, the disturbance, and the length of the driveway that would be required for safety, fire truck access, turnouts. And so we'll be prepared to respond to that when we receive those memos.
Okay. So it is a public hearing. Oh, it's not a public hearing, I apologize, it's still old business. Forgive me, I get lost in the agenda. So I would be asking for a continuation. Is there anything else, John?
Is the board prepared to schedule a public hearing for the next meeting?
No. But I want to finish up this aspect
So
of it.
what is outstanding then at this point? Besides, understandably, there's a discussion that needs to take place, and as the applicant, we need to review materials and respond to it. But at this point, we haven't scheduled a public hearing as we were waiting for the consultants to weigh in,
Yes.
which has now happened.
Yes. I think the point that we're at is that I think your clients need to make a decision about whether they want to change their position as to where the driveway should be or not. The idea behind not holding the public hearing yet was that we want to have the public hearing on the proposed location, on the driveway location that is what your client's sort of final proposal is. And so if you can advise the board, present an alternative coming in from Barrett Tyler that your clients can live with, or if they're not going to do that, say to the board that we're going to stick with the access from Aqueduct Road and allow
Sure,
the board
but
to make a decision.
In terms of procedure, not to cut you off, I apologize, but in terms of procedure, there's, in essence, we are proposing a driveway that is in a location. So if something is going to be modified from that, then that's a discussion that would happen with this board. Our application hasn't changed. And there wouldn't be any reason why the public hearing couldn't be continued if the discussion continued.
Also waiting on the Hudson, or trees.
Say that again.
Are we still waiting on before
We are still waiting. Well, in terms of a rule, I leave it up to the board whether you want to open the public hearing at the next meeting. I think it would have to be continued until there's more of a direction with regard to what this project is going to look like.
How does this doing that, this is of course complicated because the existing condition is that there's a notice of violation and a stop work order, and we haven't been able to advance the mitigation or resolution of that. This is sort of new ground for all of us because
Yes.
they're asking to move forward an application on something that has a stop work order and a notice of violation.
Yes.
So for me, that complicates it.
Yep.
It makes it
Yep.
it makes it different than the standard going forward, which is why I'm reluctant to get back into the public hearing
I agree.
prematurely until we have everything that we want in. That's where I'm coming from.
That's up to the board. You have freedom to go in either direction.
What I think I heard you say is decision on mitigation can't happen until there is a decision on the driveway route, because one can affect the other.
I think that we can strictly
Now,
tied to one
it
another.
seems to be pretty clear that this board wants the driveway route to be the proposed route, in the previous approval. So why don't we take a vote? Is there a reason not to take a vote on this issue, John?
I think that I would feel more comfortable if you had the complete memo in front of you before you actually take a vote.
Well,
I'd
either way, it has to get, sorry.
I'd like us to finish our conversation.
I don't anticipate that the information in the memo is going to cause you to change your minds, but I do think it's important to have, there's a complicated history that's there, and I think it's important for you to understand it. And this happens to be an instance where this issue of where the access should be has been looked at 2 or 3 times already by other planning boards, and there's a consistency among the concerns that have been raised by those boards about having an access directly off of Aqueduct Road and the disruption that would take place to cut the bank of the road to the west in order to create site distance. So my recommendation to you would be to take your official vote after you've got the full memo.
But even if it was unclear, or some legal decision came that we could change it,
Yes,
we, for good reason, could choose not to change it.
that's correct. That's correct.
Again, but I personally would like to have in front of me the document from Kim, but I also would like to have a final report from Smithsonian. Because I think we're close, but I would prefer to continue to schedule it for old business, not open it up to public hearing yet, to receive those reports and continue to the next meeting.
So at the next meeting, we'd be anticipating the board kind of taking an official vote on the direction, and then also opening, would you be scheduling the public hearing at that time?
Yes.
And Melody, if we were to agree with a change to the driveway, would that open the board to schedule a public hearing at this time?
But we haven't seen the proposed new driveway.
Sorry.
So we're going to go, I believe,
I think that'd be something that could be worked on over the next
30 days.
30 days.
In the meantime, you could start looking at a new driveway.
Of course.
So that would help expedite everything.
Right, but in a situation where this is a matter of local concern, all of the decisions are within this board. So would it not be helpful to the board to open it for public comment and continue it as long as you need to continue it?
I think after the next meeting.
Yeah, I think Christina, we've talked this through, and it's the consensus on this board to schedule this for December 16th, at which time we will have the Hudsonia report and we will have Kim's final. We will review that and we'll make a determination. You have then the option to come in at that meeting and tell us that you have worked with your client and you would like to change the driveway location, and we'll discuss that at that time, or you'll come in and tell us no, and then we'll take a vote as to whether or not we want the location of the driveway to remain where it is. That's how I see it.
And the vote, sorry, so that would be,
To
that
get a public hearing.
that would be a vote for a public hearing. That would not be a vote for a resolution or a vote for the design of the driveway, because the board is not designing a
To go to
driveway.
public hearing.
Well, the vote, you will be taking a vote on the design, on the location of the
Yeah.
driveway,
Yeah.
where you want, yeah.
Not at the public hearing.
That's it.
Is there any, isn't there a requirement to cure the notice of violation before we consider the application? Is that?
Before we
You can't
finally
issue an approval until
Before we
the
approve
We
it?
can
notice of
consider them
violation is set.
simultaneously, but we can't give the final approval until that notice of violation is.
And can you be clear about the procedure on the vote for the design of the driveway off the location or not? That is not a resolution of the board, that is a vote on preference of driveway location?
John, Chief?
So I'm
This
sorry.
is-
I was
I'm sorry,
talking
can
to
you
Christian.
be
Could
clear about the
repeat?
procedure with the vote that Melody's is referring to
At the next
at the
meeting.
next meeting? The vote would be the vote would be on what? The vote would be not on seeker, not on a resolution, the vote would be on the design of the driveway.
The vote, okay, that's a good question. The vote would be taken by the planning board to indicate a consensus to your clients as an applicant as to where the planning board thinks the driveway should be located.
And is it also tied to the planning board accepting that the shall in the original plot?
Yes, you can detail that, but and you may want to say at that time what Ed is saying, which is that even if we were not required to leave that, to have that as a result of the map note, to have that access there, under our site plan regulations, in our discretion, we would decide that this is the place that's best suited for the driveway.
So to be clear, it is a vote on the design of the driveway.
And the location.
The location of the driveway.
I don't think this board is intent on doing anything different than what's already written, which is that the access for this property comes off of Barrett Tyler. That's what's written. The applicant is proposing an alternative that is just not tenable. So I don't think we have anything to move forward on because that's not a viable alternative.
Well, if the applicant can make the choice of saying, look, I don't accept the board's direction on this, I still want to continue to propose to the board that the access should be directly off the Backford Road. And we want you to hold a public hearing on that, and we want you to issue a decision on our request for site plan approval with that design. And then it'll be up to you whether you want to approve that, issue site plan approval and a special permit or not.
It sounds like the vote was not related to any sort of approvals, it's just to show consensus of where we're standing.
Correct.
It's a more informative vote internally for us to just see where we're standing.
So
Not
that
nothing
the
official.
applicant can have direction.
Right, it's like a directional vote.
All right.
And then there would be a separate vote to schedule a public hearing.
All right, may I have a motion to schedule this whole business for the December 16th and continuing forward in time?
I will make that motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to be clear, John, just so I understand, or Melody, what is the mechanism of the vote at the next meeting versus the informal discussion, which there's clearly a consensus at today's meeting?
Well, the difference is that there isn't a legal mechanism. The difference is that my recommendation to the board is that they have the full, Kim's full memorandum in hand before they make their final decision on this. But I think that the consensus that the board's reached tonight on the straw vote is something that your client may decide to act upon or not. Thank you.
All right, that then brings us to the second order of business, and let's see, all the important people here. I mean, by that, it's the planning board. Opening business myself. So,
Thank you.
this last order of old business, which I refresh everybody's memory, is to take up where we left off. That's part 2. You have received, I believe, the transcript of the presentation and question and answer from Dutchess County Water and Wastewater, that's in your hand. And I also want to thank Christian Moore from our engineering consultant firm, CPL, for joining us this evening so that Christian has had the opportunity in the past, I think on several occasions, normally to look at the details of this application. He's forwarded his input to us, but he's here as we go through the questions this evening to answer any questions any board members might have. So thank you, Christian. And John, of course, is here as always to advise. So, Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm going to turn it over to Christian. So tonight, the idea was to go through some more of the secret part 2 items. We got a memo from you. I think you're going to walk us through this, right, from 1 to 3.
Yeah, we were asked to provide input on questions 1, impact to land, and questions 3, impacts to surface water.
I'm going to ask you to bring the microphone a little closer. It's kind of hard to hear, so.
As this is good.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through these one at a time. I just want to make everyone aware that some of these answers to these questions are going to be very, very similar. In some cases, they're copies because it's going through the various questions, especially when it comes to impacts to erosion, it's the same question that has multiple different ways. So it's virtually the same answer. I don't know, is the intent for me to read this verbatim or try to hit the highlights of this? I don't know how you're doing it in the past.
So my mic's dead, but the way we've done it in the past is to provide, I can project. My the intent and what we've been doing, Christian, is going through, looking at, the actual question up top, and then based on your professional opinion, whether or not we need to go through the sub-items or not, and if we do, we've been going through them one by one with your findings on that, and then the board makes a determination of no or small impact may occur, or moderate to large impact may occur based on what you found in your findings for each of those. Okay. So yes, we've been going through every sub-item so far. A couple of
Okay, so question 1A, the proposed act may involve construction on land where depth to water table is less than 3 feet. From where they're proposing all the work, this would be a no impact. All of these stormwater management areas had deep test pits dug in to verify that there was no rock or water within, I think it was 2 feet at the bottom. And that's a requirement as per the New York State DEC Stormwater Management Design Manual, revised January of 2015. So the answer to 1A would be no impact.
Do we want to, so as we're going through these, I tend to just ask planning board members if they have any questions of you or if they agree with your assessment. So I would ask you.
I think that's acceptable, as he explained.
So 1A would be no or small impact, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, next. 1B, the proposed action may involve construction on the slopes of 15% or greater. Based on a review of the plan, all identified areas of steep slopes which are to be disturbed or created as part of the proposed action are indicated to have a temporary and permanent erosion control matting. Those are in areas where the slopes exceed 1/3. Additionally, the stormwater pollution prevention plan and construction drawings include written construction sequence which is designed to minimize erosion by ordering physical site operations in a logical manner, minimizing the total amount of disturbed area at one time, and ensuring that disturbed areas are stabilized as soon as is practical should construction operations cease either temporarily or permanently. And specific to B, there are multiple locations of proposed retaining walls which will reduce grading on slopes in areas which would otherwise encroach into wetland adjacent areas or areas with other steeper slopes. In order for the project to obtain and maintain coverage under the DEC general permit for stormwater discharge construction activities, the owner applicant is required to perform weekly written compliance inspections, which will verify the condition of all implemented erosion control measures and identify any discrepancies in same with the directive to the contractor to install, replace, or repair all erosion control measures in a timely manner on an as-needed basis.
Sorry, Christian, I'm having trouble hearing you, so maybe if you could speak more directly into the microphone, or maybe go a little bit more slowly, because I didn't really get any of that.
This one picking me up a bit better?
Okay, you can continue.
The question involves the construction of slopes of 15% or greater. So are you saying no impact? I don't see that here.
Oh, it would be a small impact.
Small or no, because of the 15%?
Yeah, there would be construction of 50% or greater, but they are mitigating it using erosion control practices and the use of retaining walls to reduce the overall magnitude of.
And this is primarily those easternmost clusters of condos that are adjacent to the wetland?
I think all of the condo buildings have retaining walls on them in one form or another.
Clarification, Mark? Christian said he believed that all of the condominium units had retaining walls.
The ones along the south along the wetlands do have a retaining wall, yes.
Okay.
And there are several in the, on the other slope. On the west side. On the west side, that also.
That confirms your understanding. So Christian is saying no as well, impact under may involve construction of slopes of 15%. Any disagreement with that? Small or no?
Okay, question 1C. Proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of the existing ground surface. If during construction rock is discovered which interferes with work, it will need to be removed in a manner acceptable to the town of Rhinebeck. All stormwater management areas were investigated with deep test pits. This is a rehash of my earlier comment.
Okay.
But wherever they're going to be proposing deep excavations, they've already explored there, so there should not be any impacts. So that would be a small impact.
Questions, comments, planning board members? Are you in agreement?
Okay, question 1D. The proposed action may involve the excavation and removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. Response. The proposed action is not anticipated to remove amounts of material in excess of 1,000 tons. Therefore, there would be no impact under that section.
Agreed?
Okay.
Question E. The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases. Response. The proposed action is to be performed in 2 phases. Water and sewer utilities along with drainage and vehicular access will be constructed or installed first, and the multifamily residential units and historic building adaptive reuse actions will be implemented separately. Installation of the utility infrastructure is integral to the project as a whole, and phasing its construction would not serve a useful purpose. Therefore, the effect of the phasing and duration of the proposed actions would be considered small under this section.
So you're saying that it's obviously likely that the full build-out of this is longer than a year and will be in multiple phases. But your sense is that this is acceptable?
Yeah, they need to install all the water and sewer anyway, regardless of how far they go with the development or the construction of the condos. So it doesn't make sense for them to, okay, I'll build this condo unit here, serve it with water and sewer, because they have to put in all the roads, and the roads all have drainage, and it's all, generally linked together. The stormwater management areas are kind of spread apart all over the site. However, water and sewer, those all are fed by a central source or go to a central discharge point.
Is everybody clear on that? Any questions about that?
I guess what would be an example of a moderate to heavy impact?
I was wondering if this is one that we should look a little further. Jim, do you have that just so we can bring up some of those sub-considerations, if you will? We're on 1.
So it says, will there be an impact? If the project will be completed within 1 year of approval, or if there is only one phase of the project, there will be no related impacts, and check no or small impact may occur. It states that the small impact examples are construction that occurs in multiple phases, but the overall level of activity will not be substantially different from a single phase project, or construction will continue for more than 1 year, but activity will be intermittent. There will be spurts of activity for less than 2 months, for example, there will be spurts of activity for less than 2 months at a time, perhaps seasonally for 1 or 2 years. Moderate to large impact would be construction that occurs over multiple phases over many years, that would be considered long-term. The proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, occurring from treatment by herbicides.
Yeah, it's super rough. So based on his comments, like, everything's gonna be moving along and kind of not being phased over a very long term, it's gonna be doing.
Right, and I certainly don't see that it's going to, I can't see it being long-term.
It seems like the purpose of the question is for broad-scale projects that are just going to squelch the natural processes of growth and propagation of different species on the site. And I don't know if I have that right. And if that's the thrust of the question, then I don't know if this project meets that or exceeds it.
Looking at the question, there's a little bit of a disconnect. When you look under small impact, or when you look at the main question, is the duration of construction going to exceed a year? And then when you look under moderate to large impact, it references many years.
Many years, yeah.
So it goes from more than a year to how long?
Right.
I mean, there's a project I worked on actually with Matt Rudikoff's office and Joe Bridges many, many years ago, Harvest Ridge over in LaGrange. I started that in 2000, it's still being built.
That's long-term.
Yeah.
So,
And also what's helpful, I think, is just above this is like, there's just analysis, like total time frame on the project, just things to look at. What would be the effect on long construction? How would they be affected? I think that my point is that it's you know, if it's going to be over 25 years, it's a much bigger effect than, 1 or 2, which is where.
Well, I think when you're talking about land, this question is about the impact on the land, and I think the point that Christian made that resonates with me is the impact on the land is, a lot of it is coming from the construction of the infrastructure. That once the buildings are up and there's interior work going on and other things, that the massive impact on the land is likely to happen in that first year, I would assume.
That's actually a really useful way to look at it, because over the course of several years, if something goes on, even if it's a year or two, if you're interrupting the propagation of plants, the life cycles of different species, the site isn't going to be the same ecologically at the end of the process than it was at the beginning. And what confuses me a little bit is it says for the smaller impacts that it's just work is going to happen in short phases. And I don't know if this meets that standard or not.
I think when it says short phases, it's sort of referring to, say, like a residential subdivision with 30, 40, 50 units where the roads may be built, but then the lots are sold off individually over decades potentially. Yeah. And I think the moderate to large impact that the question suggests is really effects on erosion. So if you have a site that's been open cut, things roughed in, and it just goes to pot, and it's never stabilized or restored to a pre-existing or better condition, then that, people aren't taking care to look at their erosion control. They're not just being a good housekeeper, so to speak.
So I didn't read my intro because I think I've done it 2 or 3 times now. I didn't think I had to do that. But on the EAF form, one of the things I want to remind everyone is that the tips for completing the part 2 say to answer the question in a reasonable manner considering the scale and context of the project. So I think everything you've heard today about the scale and the context, and remembering that this form is used from everything from the project we're talking about to building, a new Buffalo Bills stadium. So you have to take everything into context in terms of what it is and whether it makes sense. And some of these honestly seem a little convoluted, but you have to do your best, effort to understand what you think it is, again, based on the scale and context of the project and what we've reviewed and where you think it will.
I'm convinced it's small.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, Christian.
Okay, moving on to question F. The proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment by herbicides. Response. The stormwater pollution prevention plan has been prepared for this project by Mark Rhinebeck and has been designed in accordance with all requirements of the DEC general permit for stormwater discharges from construction activities, GP 0-02-001. And the remainder of the comment is similar to previous answers, and therefore we believe it would be a small impact under this section.
Comments? Questions?
Makes sense.
Everybody okay as well?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, G. The proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area. Response. The site of the proposed action is not located within a coastal erosion hazard area, therefore there is no impact under this section.
Well, that one is
Pretty simple.
pretty simple. Jeff, is there anything in your review that you would add? No?
I don't believe so. Or just make sure that we come around to a final conclusion on the one.
Well, I would appear to me that the impact on land would be no. Agreement?
Agreed.
Surface water.
Okay, impacts on surface water. Proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies, including streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes. Question A. The proposed action may create a new water body. Response. The proposed action will create multiple stormwater management areas for the purpose of providing water quality benefits and post-development peak runoff rate attenuation. The stormwater management areas have been designed in accordance with the DEC general permit and the stormwater management design manual, and they will be maintained by the owner-operator in perpetuity. The creation of the proposed stormwater management areas is a necessary element of this project as required by the DEC and cannot be avoided. Therefore, the effect will be considered small under this section.
Well, if it's a requirement. Correct?
Yeah.
Anybody see it differently or have any questions? Yeah.
No, I'm thinking moderate would be some large lake or something, and these are not that.
Well, do you want to look at that? Yeah, that's why I would look at that. Let's see what moderate would be.
Stormwater discharges small. The download for the moderate would be endangered species, habitat, large areas of vegetation, and of course we don't want to grow steep sloping.
I think right there, the first bullet where it says no SWIP has been prepared, and that's, we have a SWIP.
Okay. Well, satisfied with small?
Okay, question B. The proposed action may result in an increase or decrease of over 10% or more than a 10-acre increase or decrease in the surface area body of any body of water. Response, the proposed action will not modify or increase the surface area of any existing water bodies. As I stated before, the stormwater management areas are separate and distinct from what would typically be considered a water body, and they're also necessary to implement the stormwater pollution prevention plan as required by the DEC.
Small.
Let's see if I have any.
Agreed.
And therefore, they would be considered a small impact under this section.
What about the discharge of wastewater into an intermittent stream? Does that rise to the level of?
That's coming later. It's in a future question.
Because question, increase or decrease in the surface of any body of water. So your point is an intermittent stream.
It's an intermittent stream, and if it's no longer intermittent, then you kind of increase the, but it's maybe misdirected. If he's pointed out that that factor is accounted for in another question, I'll hold my comment.
All right, so do you want to, for the moment, make it small with a question mark and come back to that?
That would be
Would that work for
satisfactory.
people? So let's say now small, but we're gonna note to self a question mark and circle back to that when we get to the comment about intermittent.
Because I know that it was one of those issues that's come up repeatedly in comments from the community, is the status of that intermittent stream, which can be less intermittent.
Okay, all right, so then, got with that for the moment.
Okay. Question C. Proposed action may involve dredging of more than 100 cubic yards of material from a wetland or water body. Response, the proposed action will not involve dredging, therefore is no impact under this section.
All right.
Question D. The proposed action may involve construction within or joining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body. Response. The proposed action has been designed such that intrusion into wetlands is avoided, minding the 100-foot wetland adjacent areas for DEC regulated wetlands. There is a non-DEC regulated wetland identified as wetland H at the Road B entrance to the site, where a town-regulated 100-foot buffer is encroached upon. We note that the entrance at this location is pre-existing, and the proposed action is reusing an access point which is already there, improving it for emergency access. The principal encroachment into the wetland H buffer is for the creation of a stormwater management practice, which is required under DEC regulations as part of obtaining coverage on the DEC general permit. The actual limit of wetland H is not shown to be encroached upon. The work described here is unavoidable for purposes of both stormwater management and life safety, therefore the effect would be considered small under this section. And for the board's information, this is right where the wastewater treatment plant is. The disturbance within the buffer, it's like an inverted horseshoe right around the wetland.
Questions, comments? Small?
I think that covers it from my perspective.
Anyone else? Okay.
Question E. The proposed action may create turbidity in a water body, either from upland erosion, runoff, or by disturbing bottom sediments. There is one location of temporary disturbance to a stream bed for the replacement of a culvert beneath the northerly entrance driveway. And the sweeping construction drawings contain details and written notes and prescriptions regarding temporary and permanent erosion control measures, and it's a duplicate of previous answers. The proposed construction activities will create increased erosion, however, this is unavoidable, and the proposed temporary and permanent erosion control measures and permanent stormwater practices will mitigate these impacts to the greatest extent practical as required by the DEC. Therefore, the effect of the proposed action on erosion will be considered small under this section.
Everybody's looking at me.
Well, I'm left-handed, I started that.
Good save.
You got a problem?
That was a good save.
Someone's knowledge down there, someone's knowledge in the head of yours.
I'll look this way. Any comments, questions? I'm going to just ignore him.
I'll speak up.
Yeah, well, I bet you will. Comments, folks?
I would say it's no, or no impact.
Is everyone in agreement?
Yes.
Okay, question F. The proposed action may include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water from surface water. Response, the proposed action does not impose the intake of surface waters, therefore there is no impact under this section. They're using drilled wells as a water source.
That's pretty obvious.
G, the proposed action may include construction of one or more outfalls for discharge of wastewater to surface waters. Response, the existing wastewater treatment facility is to be updated, upgraded, repaired to comply with all federal and state requirements. A sewer report entitled Engineer's Report for Rockledge Sanitary Sewer System prepared by WSP dated April 2023. I want to make sure I have the most up-to-date version of that because I don't think I have the most recent report. That's just a placeholder there. The sanitary sewer outfall location is the Forsberg Creek, identified as an intermittent stream.
Is that Forsberg or Fallsburg?
It said Forsberg in the report.
And it's not the creek, it's a tributary to the creek.
Okay, well, maybe I need to get the updated report. The report was prepared utilizing the following standards. New York State design standards for intermediate and intermediate-sized wastewater treatment systems, recommended standards for wastewater facilities, aka 10 state standards, TR16 guides for the design of wastewater treatment works, New York State Stormwater Management Design Manual, and 6 NYC-RR Part 750-2.10. Wastewater treatment plant is assumed to operate on an average daily wastewater flow of 12,238 gallons per day. The facility will operate under its own SPEEDIES permit, that's State Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. Its own SPEEDIES permit under the governing authority of the New York State DEC. The design of the WWTP has been submitted to Dutchess County Water Wastewater Authority and Dutchess County Department of Behavioral and Community Health, and the DEC will ultimately issue the effluent discharge permit.
Questions?
Oh, one little comment. I can turn the page. As the wastewater treatment plant is being upgraded and repaired as needed to bring it up to required operating standards, the effect on the environment would be considered small under this section.
Can you read that?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to know like what's.
And this is just surface waters.
Discharge.
Yeah, it's just surface waters.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's, the discharge is into an intermittent stream. And that kind of sets the bar higher for the quality of the outfall. Because it is being discharged not to a body of water. It's like pouring it out on the ground. And my memory of it is there's a previously constructed outfall. It's right there, a few feet off of the road. It gets overgrown with vines and that sort of thing by midsummer. But it is currently marked with a sign, and there's the outfall there, and that goes to a culvert that goes under the road.
Is it discharges into a manhole, and from the manhole it discharges to the stream, and then there's a culvert underneath Aqueduct Road.
Okay, does the stream run on the Rockledge side of Aqueduct, or does the manhole take it under?
Discharge is on the west side of Aqueduct, the Rockledge side.
Okay, and then that's a stream that runs along the roadway?
No, it goes underneath the roadway.
It goes underneath the roadway. Because on the other side, on the east side of Aqueduct, that's all grassy. There's no ditch or any kind of feature. There's not really even a noticeable swale. Does it just kind of run out onto the ground?
Yeah, it's discharges on the side, yes.
Okay. So it's not really a body of water.
It's a stream.
Okay.
And you had a question before about the magnitude of that. I did the math real quick on it. And 12,000 gallons a day, if you break that down to an average flow, that's about 8 gallons a minute. So it's not going to be, you know, it may spike a little bit during the operation, it may peak a little bit, but the average flow, average over the entire day is 8.3 gallons per minute.
And how would that compare to, say, like the sump pump discharge from somebody's basement?
Well, usually when it comes to that, the analogy I tell most people is when you're, say, looking, for example, at stormwater. We're measuring stormwater in cubic feet per second versus gallons per minute. It's an order of magnitude off from one another. That's usually about the best way. Now, a sump pump, you know, they might operate at 3 or 4 gallons per minute, but it operates once and then it just kind of cuts off. And now if you have a more chronic groundwater problem, they may kick on a lot more often.
And this system would function similarly throughout the day, like during times of heavy use, where everybody's taking a shower. The discharge is probably likely to be more frequent than in the middle of the night, for instance. Or is it a constant release?
With regard to that, I'd want to go back and take a look at the engineer's report to see how it's reported.
Okay.
So I remember them saying like it goes to a holding tank, right? And then I think that
fills up,
right,
comes out, yeah. So it's almost like you would get.
I think they holding tank, and the holding tank continues to release, obviously.
Yeah.
And then during spikes, it'll probably have enough capacity, but it'd be good to know.
Right. So what I'm driving at is even under this new level of usage, the presence of water in that stream would still be intermittent. Yes, or
Well, intermittent streams by their nature, they really only flow like when there's rainfall in the area.
Okay.
Sometimes they're also called ephemeral. I don't know if I'm using the right exact term for that.
Yeah.
There are some, like they're only streams during the wet part of the season.
Right now, they're going to be all dried up.
Right now, you're not going to have anything. And regarding most sewer plants, many will be designed with a surge tank or something like that to handle the incoming peak, because people will be using more in the morning, more at noon, more in the evening, and the works are usually designed to handle a more even flow. So the holding tanks are there to rise up, to accommodate a big slug, we'll call it slug, incoming slug, and then run that through the plant treatment system. And there's many, many different types of treatment plant schemes.
So I just looked up, and I don't know these sites, I just looked it up, but it's in a few places. They all say that prior to 1982, toilets used 5 to 7 gallons per flush. The newer toilets use 1.28 gallons per flush. So just to kind of put it in perspective, you know, we're using essentially the amount you were talking about almost every flush, you know, back in the 80s with the size of the toilets. Some of it's a little hard to know because some of them run until it's the full level, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that puts it in a little more perspective, I don't know. But the current toilets flush just over a gallon per flush on average right now.
And the typical design flow that's used for residential construction is 110 gallons per day. And that's, you know, for the entire day, and they have however many units and however many bedrooms. But, you know, 12,200 some odd gallons per day, that's their design projected target for this.
Well, I think, Jim, you bring up a good point, that historically, there was this outfall that discharged to the same location. And because of the water conservation measures that have been implemented over the past 30 years, it's likely that we'll see less of the discharge along that conduit with this application when it becomes active than they were seeing in the 1980s, 1990s.
And in addition to that, also, when they put in the new sanitary sewer system, it's going to be using more modern materials, less likely to leakage and infiltration and inflow, commonly known as I&I. So you'll have less effect on the plant from, say, groundwater or other sources of water that don't need to be treated.
Okay.
So I have a question. I know that we've talked about the fact that the plan will meet, that the effluent from the plan will meet regulatory standards. And I was just wondering, in sort of plain English, what does that mean? Can you just scoop up a handful of effluent and drink it? Does it meet drinking water standards?
Typically not. I mean, I would have to bone up on the standards, but they're, based upon the quality and volume of receiving waters. What's usually done is called a WAC study, WAC, waste assimilation capacity. And it's essentially a measure of how much the receiving body can take in terms of total flow and what limits of total suspended solids can be in the waste stream. The report would have that all detailed out. I don't have that in mind right now. But usually the standards for intermittent streams would be a bit higher than would be if it was discharging, say, the Wappinger Creek that has a very, very large flow and a discharge point into the Wappinger Creek probably wouldn't even be detectable by any measurable means.
So the Department of Environmental Conservation's determined there's a point that it's, in terms of the amount of pollutants that are removed from water, that there's a point at which it's safe to discharge those into the environment. But there's a delta between those, the quality of that water and drinking water quality. What happens to the pollutants that remain in the effluent that are discharged? Do they spread themselves out into the environment, or is that how the rest of treatment, so to speak, takes place?
Yeah, the Speedies permit is going to have all the discharge limits as to how much nitrogen a sample can have. Like I believe at the end of it, there's a manhole that's typically used for sampling the effluent to make sure that the plant's operating correctly. And those are all, cataloged and regulated to make sure that the plant isn't operating beyond what it's designed to handle. Sometimes if you have a very high storm event and you have, say, some combined sewer overflows, it's not true in this case. You can have an overloading of the plant where undigested or unbroken down material gets through the works and goes into, let's say, the Hudson River. Obviously, the DC doesn't want that to happen because it hasn't been broken down. It's not drinking water safe, but if it meets the thresholds and requirements in the speedy discharge permit, that's the standards they have to go with.
Okay.
You were saying, sorry.
One last question. So is the standard, the speedy standard that's being applied to the effluent in this case, the most efficacious speedy standard that there is in the state?
I believe it would be based upon the nature of the receiving waters.
Okay.
So there may be different discharge limits depending on what you're discharging to. Like if you're discharging, say, to like an open drainage system, you might need to have tertiary treatment with final disinfection before you can discharge. Other designs may not require as rigorous a level of treatment. So that's all reviewed and maintained by DEC and Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority. They're on it too because they're going to be operating and maintaining this. And Dutchess County Health Department also offered review. So there's 3 levels of review on this. And ongoing, they have to provide regular reporting to make sure that the facility is operating within what they're permitted to discharge in terms of total volume per day and also the quality of the effluent leaving the plant.
I have one more question.
She'll go. Your questions are the best.
So there were some suggestions made by some of the folks that commented during the public hearing about whether state standards were sufficient. Are you aware of any, and then the comment was made to me, I don't remember whether it was in the meeting or after the meeting, about, that Rhinebeck shouldn't be accepting the state standard and the Rhinebeck should be open to imposing its own standard for water quality. And I understand logistically that would be very complicated, but I want to ask, are you aware of any local municipalities that have imposed their own standards with regard to water quality for effluent?
Short answer, no, I'm not, and more of a question, I don't know what regulatory authority a municipality would have to supersede the state. Any more than the state could countermand a federal requirement. I don't know that many municipalities have the wherewithal just within their own staff to monitor and keep tabs on and increase
Or even
standards.
set their own standards.
Or even set their own standards. They'd have to implement a mechanism for control. And so then the plan would have to meet DEC, whatever their requirements are, and also a local. I don't know if that would be worthy of a legal challenge. I would leave that to other.
I think supersession probably is an issue, and I'll look into that. Thank you.
I think there's like preparatory paragraph at the beginning of the speedies permit that does state that the state standard doesn't obviate the stricter standards that might be imposed by municipalities, but I don't think Rhinebeck has anything, there's no code, there's nothing in our code that would indicate that we have any authority or review that's greater than what the state has.
In my recollection of the presentation by Dutchess County Water and Wastewater was that they certainly emphasized the monitoring that they were going to be conducting on an extremely, what I thought was regular basis, and that they, as the operators, took that monitoring process very seriously. So I think if we review that part of their presentation, we'll see that there's, I'm taking some comfort in what they said they would be mindful of.
Well, and we ran into this before with the Garden Homes trailer park, which also discharges into the Rhinebeck Hill. And because of the scale of that operation, they were only required to do the test like once a year. And it's, remarkable that that's all that's required, but it's a much higher standard that's being met with this. So, and I think people would be surprised at how many different locations around the area have a discharge into our waters. It's not an unusual thing.
I have one quick question, just, is there any, a septic and a well have a distance requirement? Is there any sort of requirements related to discharge in location to like private wells, or is there any concern related to that contamination?
Well, I'm sure that the county and health department would have identified any individual wells in the vicinity of the sewer outfall discharge. Typically, it's 100 foot from the in-ground septic system to a well. But then again, when you're looking at effluent from your house, it's going through a little bit different process to break down the waste. And it's going relatively shallow, and you're not getting as nearly the level of treatment that you get going through the entire plant. But that would be all regulated. I don't know exactly what the separation distances are. I think that if there was a nearby public water supply that wasn't accounted for, they would have to be very, very mindful of that. They would always situate their sewer outfalls downstream of any tributary area going to, say, a municipal town well field, for obvious reasons.
Anything?
Outside my warehouse.
Outside your warehouse.
I'm gonna pop that this one.
I'm comfortable with all of the information that we shared and see this as no or small. Any disagreement?
Yeah.
I feel like based on the standards, it's where it falls, but like bigger spectrum feels a little close to me, but just based on the standards provided, I guess it's the category to fall into. It just feels like it's bigger than that in some capacity.
Okay, Christian?
And then that was G we just did, right?
Yes, it was.
H, question. Proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies. And this has been answered in previous comments. They have a SWIP, erosion control, written work plan, and that would be a small impact under that section.
Agreed.
Okay, question I. Proposed action may affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of proposed action. Again, they have a SWIP. I just amplified it a little bit, that the stormwater management areas, in addition to providing attenuation and, wait, I'm reading from the wrong one. They have a SWIP, so. Hello, testing. Sorry. Yeah, they have a SWIP as per DEC, so that would be a small impact under the section.
Okay?
Okay, question J. The proposed action may involve the application of pesticides or herbicides in or around any water body. And to that, it's difficult to nail this one down because all the proposed stormwater management areas are going to have specific vegetative plantings. So I don't think that the applicant is going to apply herbicides or pesticides anywhere that's going to damage any landscaping they're putting in.
This one I will jump in on. I'm pretty sure in the past we said there are no herbicides or pesticides proposed for the construction of the project.
That's correct.
That'd be a no
And
impact.
I thought that they were specific to their landscape plan, that was very noticeable in there. You know, the selection of plant materials,
Correct.
all of the work you did in talking about how those plant materials needed to be watered or didn't need to be watered was all, I believe, part of that. So I don't think this, I think this is no wrong. I think you've already thought about that in advance and selected the plant material that is best suited to not need that sort of protection.
It was addressed by the landscape architect.
Yes.
Yeah, the original water sewer report called for, I believe it was about 16,500 gallons per day of water consumption, but only 12,200 of sewer discharge. The difference there would be the amount of water used for irrigation purposes. So 4,000 gallons a day roughly.
But my recollection of the landscape plan was plant material was specifically selected to reduce the need for the irrigation systems.
Yes, but the plantings that are in the stormwater management areas, those may not be the same as the other landscaping because those come from a list that's in the DEC manual.
Okay.
It was just, like, the landscape architect specified that initial 4,000 gallons a day was just initially to establish growth for the landscaping, and then it's
So that was just an initial sort
Initial,
of
so-
shot to get it going.
Yeah, and so we were just being conservative in our design to include that as a.
But I think but this question is specific to pesticides or herbicides, and there's no intention to have those used on this project. I think we're confident in that, so I would say no or small. Agreed?
Agreed. All right, question K. Question, the proposed action may require the construction of new or an expansion of existing wastewater treatment facilities. And this is where I kind of just reiterate my previous comment on the wastewater treatment plant. There's really nothing to add here, so that'd be considered a small impact under this section.
Questions?
So we're not expanding this, right?
It's not new,
It's not new,
it's not expanded.
and
It's
we're just
improved.
updating and improving and upgrading, and repairing.
Any disagreement with that? Any questions?
No.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that concludes section 3 that we have on surface water, excepting 3B, which we noted with a question mark to return to. when we got to,
I feel clear that it's small, now that we've reviewed the
now that
other
we've
portion.
reviewed all of it,
Yeah.
so we can take away the question mark,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay? Then the conclusion I draw is that the impacts on surface water are no. Any questions, comments? Okay. All right, Christian? Is that true?
That was it.
All right, Jim, is that what we hope to get through tonight? Do you want to,
We're hoping to do 4 and 5 as well, next, but we don't have the info on that, so everyone's wanting to slug it out at the next meeting. We'll go to 4 and 5, which is groundwater and flooding. I think a lot of those are pretty straightforward. We'll coordinate with Christian on those. And then we have 17 and 18, which are consistency of community plans and consistency of community character.
You wanted me to hit number questions 4 and 5 also?
We've talked, we'll coordinate on the next
Oh,
one.
okay.
I can't do all this one, I need some help on that.
Gretchen, what, so our next meeting would be in 2 weeks. And what are you looking at on the agenda?
Not that bad.
Not that bad.
Hold you to it.
So don't let it
Can't make promises.
Don't let it get worse. Are we comfortable trying to get through the last sections with a not-so-bad meeting? I want to thank everybody, Christian especially, because I think this was pretty smooth tonight. And let's try, I'm proposing that we try and get through those last. Are you available in 2 weeks, Christian?
Well, what's that date?
December 2nd.
I think so.
All right, I would recommend that we try and, mindful of the fact that we may get through our part, and then we're going to be, again, welcoming public input, and we've completed this process, our process. So I'd like if we could try to keep this moving along and get those last sections done, and then we'll, at that point, decide what our next steps are.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
You know how many sections you want? All right, let's go.
Anything else, planning board members?
I propose we,
I thought we.
Can't drink what yet.
I know, we were closing the motion. John, anything you want to add at this point?
No.
Okay. So, I would say that just remind everybody, we have received some additional information that you sent us. I think, speaking only for myself, I appreciate the attention you paid to the colorway change. I was very, very pleasantly surprised by what a difference just, that what seems like a subtle change made in terms of, I just found the buildings to be much more attractive with that color change, so I appreciate that. And I want to thank Matt and Jim who's received it, and others for responding to our request for information about how the changes are coming down from DEC. We'll take a look at that, and John will look at it, we'll all take a look at it, and we haven't had much of a chance to review it ourselves, but thank you for the responsiveness and getting information to us. And I don't know that you're leaving tonight with any additional assignments, so take a couple weeks off. And anything else before we do what we have to do to end the meeting? Yep. Go ahead.
Well, I've got here, so if we're done with Rockledge, we can get
Is there anything more we need to do with Rockledge at this point? I don't think so. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I didn't put together anything official in the memo, like, as you know, we've been reviewing the guide proposal, we looked at it again today for revised retaining walls. We do need to get back to the ZBA with some type of response as to where we stand. We've been asking them to hold up on their findings until we did one. Based on what I saw, as I mentioned earlier, it's a significantly revised site plan, the landscaping plan has been submitted, almost to the point that they're due. I put together something that we can send to them if you'd like to do so. it essentially states.
Matt? Matt? Somebody's left something here.
Thank you. So I just kind of put this together essentially under the assumption that we want a little bit of time to review the new plans. Essentially stating that we've received a significantly revised site plan, landscaping plan, they're presented to the board tonight. And since all previous comments and concerns were related to the previous design, the board is continuing to review the project, anticipate providing input to the ZBA at a future date, and requesting a future open public hearing. Unless there's something else you'd like to see.
I mean, other than we're waiting on CPL to review the walls and items like that, which isn't a ZBA issue, I was quite impressed with the new plan and taking in topography and taking in everything else that I would be not in a position to hold it up, and I would be in a position to let the ZBA do what the ZBA does. And we're still in our hands on, CPL's review and everything else of approving the project, but they've moved, we don't know how far, but quite a significant distance off the other property line. I mean, they've taken, I was blown away by what we saw today compared to where we started, and I think they took everything we took into consideration. I don't think we need to hold anything up on the ZBA.
That would have been the other option if everyone's okay with it, but we'll tell them to complete their process and.
Yes, because any issues, I should point out that we hear back from Christian, or that it's simply going to affect our process.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the issues that the ZBA were looking at were, the proximity to neighbors and other things that I think they've gone a long way toward mitigating. So I think I think we should tell them that we've been pleased by the progress they've made and that they've addressed some of the issues that we were raising.
Yeah.
So no defining our environmental factors related to the variance itself, which is our typical response.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And we'll tell them to continue their review.
Yep.
Finish up their review, so we'll work.
Does that conclude the agenda item?
Should probably get a motion on that.
So can
May
I
I
just
have
say
a-
one other thing about Dyer?
Yeah.
Because you guys have so much to do, it's easy to brush over, the things that happen, but that's an example of, you guys really did something really positive for the community in that project, okay? Looking at it, recognizing what some of the issues were, helping to guide the applicant toward some changes that were gonna make it better in terms of how it blends in with its environment, with the neighborhood and everything. That's the stuff that's sort of the reason you guys are here. That's the rocket fuel behind, doing this and all the hard work that you do. So I just want to say congratulations about that. I appreciate every time you guys, this isn't an isolated incident. You guys do this all the time, but it's easy to gloss over it, and I didn't want you to miss the moment because it's really nice. So thank you.
Thank you for saying so.
Some applicants take design guidance very well. Others don't.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. And we've seen both examples tonight.
Well, and let me just echo that. And let me just echo it in terms of the way we've approached so far the EAF. I am most appreciative of your willingness to speak and engage in the Q&A around these questions. And I think it's demonstrating a seriousness of purpose and due diligence on our part to try and find the right answers in all these situations. So thank you for hanging in all these weeks. We still have one more. Let's hope we can get through
Or we
it.
could just pour college on that. Keep the coffee.
Yeah, well, I need something more than coffee to
We have 5 to go.
I would like to move to adjourn.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you.